This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
Wrong! If you're getting any compensation, it's not charity!
Russ Wakeland. Did you put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking. And Rodney Smith in the third chair.
I remember when I used to like you.
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming out with the speed of a zip bomber starfighter flashing out of the launch bay of a heavy cruiser. Ooh. Today's edition is brought to you by the cranky lawyer who wants to say, join the guys and gals from Garage Hammer, Ohio Hammer, Wiscotis, and Painting Tabled on Team Cranky and Extra Life this year. Gaming for kids, what could be better? I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host. Today, as always, our panelists are Russ Wakeland and videographer extraordinaire of Watch It Played fame, Rodney Scorsese Smith. Let's begin. Issue number 1. Many historians break down the stages of great civilizations into 8 phases that are repeated by each society as it rises and then falls in a never-ending cycle of achievement and decay, starting with bondage and ending in bondage. Question: of the 8 stages, in which, according to this structure, does a society move from apathy to dependence? Ramses II Russ.
During the dystopian phase.
Ramkenegg Rodney.
Probably around the...
Oh, that makes you both wrong. That would be the 7th phase, and thence from dependence to bondage again. I would hate to think what might be between dependence and bondage. Ugh. Issue number 2. The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon is best described as an event where one happens upon some obscure piece of information or item, an unfamiliar word or name or a specific color car, for example, and soon afterward encounters the same subject again, often repeatedly. How many people have bought a new car and within the next day or so reflected on how many other folks were smart enough to have bought the exact same car? Question: in what country was the Baader-Meinhof group, a left-wing military group also known as the Red Army faction, active from 1970 to 1998? Che Guevara Wakeland.
Ooh, tough one. I'm going to go with Ukraine.
Joseph Stalin Smith.
Obviously, it's Germany.
Oh, we're going to go to the judges on that one. I'm sorry, West Germany is what we were looking for.
Oh, so close.
Wrong. Issue number 3. Videography refers to the process of capturing moving images on electronic media, as in videotape, direct-to-disc recording, solid-state storage like a tapeless camcorder, or even streaming media. The term incorporates methods of video production and post-production. It is the equivalent of cinematography, but with images recorded on electronic media instead of film stock. Question: event videography is an official category of videography that includes the recording of all types of events except for what? Jason Reitman Russ.
Flash mob events. Robert
Redford Rodney.
That would obviously be, when toast pops out of the oven. You never record that.
Sorry. Flash mobs and toast popping out of the oven would both come under event videography. I'm sorry. The only events that do not come under event videography and have their own category would be weddings. Apparently, wedding videography is its own unique art form.
Does toast pop out of the ovens in Canada? I don't know.
A furious debate has raged for years now whether deck-building games count as American or Euro. Hardcore fans of each category seem willing to go to the mat for either side, and the final arbiter of the debate seems to be how much each gamer feels about how good they feel about deck-building games in general. However, looking at the various definitions of American and Euro games available online, it seems that there's an objective correct answer to this ageless question. Question: are deck builder games American or Euro? Wrath of the Elements Wakeland.
American.
A Few Acres of Snow Smith.
Oh, hot button topic. I'm going to have to go with American.
Oh, come on, guys. The average deck building game with thin themes, little to no player interaction, and a serious bling deficit. Your average deck builder game... neither, gentlemen. Your average deck builder game is in a category all its own. Boring, which makes you both take your confidence wrong. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by GameSalute.com. Check out gaming news or find out what the new hotness is on Springboard. GameSalute.com.
And by Battle Foam, protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. All by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And Wargame Soldiers and Strategy Magazine, making historical wargaming less scary and more fun.
Hello!
Oh,
Hey there.
And welcome to episode 105 of the D6 generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Rodney Smith.
Hey, Rodney, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, guys.
We're happy to have you. Of course, Rodney is from Watch It Played, the videography podcast. No, video podcast? What is that called? What do you guys call that thing?
Yeah, we call it a video series, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah, video series is fine.
Is it a YouTube channel?
It is.
Like,
yeah, it's all located on YouTube.
Your own channel.
Yeah, I know, your own channel. I asked Rodney later, I was trying to figure out, how do you get the extended length YouTube channel? Clearly a man of accomplishment. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Very awesome.
Channel all to my own. Who would have thought?
I know, that's pretty fantastic. So thanks so much for joining us. And on today's show, since we have Rodney here, we got to talk about video production. You know,
That's right.
Right on.
So that's going to be a blast. I can't wait to talk about that.
It's a growing category in gamer support online.
It is.
And we got the man to talk about it.
We do.
That's great. Can't wait.
And we're also very excited to all of us. We're going to be reviewing Core Worlds today. The Stronghold game, deck building, space conquest game, right?
Yeah.
Now this is going to be
All
really
of those
interesting for
things
me because I don't review games on my series.
Right.
It's one of our core principles. So I'm able to do it because I've left there and I'm here with you guys on
That's
the
right.
D6 generation.
You heard it here. We have corrupted Rodney.
Right. It's going
We
to
are
actually give a
working
review.
against his core principles.
That's right.
Right.
His
That-
core world principles, if you will.
Right. I saw what he did there. That's very good. All right. So let's see. Before we
Two
get to
drums and a cymbal fall off a building. But
before we get to all that, we have a couple little announcements. Craig, what's going on at Gen Con now? I know we got this all nailed down. What's going on there?
I don't know, Russ. There's like all kinds of stuff going on at Gen. Oh, you mean our thing at Gen Con?
Yes.
Well, it's funny you should ask, Russ. At noon on Friday of Gen Con in the Crown Plaza in Pennsylvania, Station
A, yes.
What does Station A mean?
I think it's station. I think it's short for station.
I don't know. That doesn't make
It's a
any
conference
sense.
room. It's a conference room.
Anyway,
right.
In the Pennsylvania something A, we have an 80-seat conference room, and we are going to be running some really cool stuff going on there. Have we told anybody yet exactly what we're doing?
No,
Okay,
no, we're
keep
keeping it.
by
It's a
law.
play by mob. It's going to be a fun, interactive thing, and whatever happens there will be recorded and broadcast on the show. And it might even feature a little, who knows, maybe rapid fire will happen, maybe achievements, maybe. And then, of course, this crazy play by mob event that some game designer yet to be identified is helping us build.
Official.
Right.
Some real life famous
Actual
game designer.
has published at least one or more games.
One or more.
Well, I'm going to have to correct you there, guys, because you said it was 80 seats. You're going to have to knock that down to 79.
Oh,
I'm not missing
excellent.
that.
Excellent. Actually, thanks, Roddy. It's good you bring that up. Well, thank you for attending, by the way. It is filling up. Last time I checked, we were down below 30 seats left. And now the good news is it is free with a Gen Con admission. So all you got to do is if you go over to gencon.com and go to where you search for events, search for D6 Generation, you'll find it's in there. Make sure you get a ticket because that's the only way we can guarantee in there. I don't know how crowded it is, but they're kind of sticklers with the fire code and everything about over jamming the rooms.
Yeah.
So
we've always had extra room. Actually, that's not true. The first year we had plenty of room, and the second year was standing room only.
Yep.
So then the third year it was we had plenty of room, and then last year we had plenty of room again.
Right.
So
Yeah,
this year it's probably going to be crowded.
the rooms
I'm
have
not
gotten bigger, but this year it got smaller. So it went from 100
Yes,
to 80. So just
yes,
make sure you get there. Get those
Last
tickets if
year
you
we
want to
had a
come.
huge
That's what we're
room.
saying.
Yeah.
And Nicole will be there as well. So it's the only place to catch us all for sure during Gen Con week. Because the rest of the weekend, who knows? It's catch us, catch can. We're everywhere. Who can
It really
say?
is.
Right. So
Unless you're going with Geek Nation Tours,
right.
then
Well,
you get to have dinner with us.
I know. You get to. Like it's some kind of privilege. We get to have dinner with you.
Included in that. I think
Yes.
it's included in the price. I think it actually knocks the price up quite considerably.
Right. So yeah, I'm looking for. Both of us are looking forward to meeting everyone there. It's always a blast, and so can't wait for Gen Con. That's going to be a lot of fun.
This is going to be my first gaming convention ever.
Really?
My first one at
well,
Gen Con. So
It'll ruin you for all others.
It will, and thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your first experience there, Rodney, to visit us.
Well, that's one of the things as a new attendee. I don't want to book myself up too much, but
Smart
yeah,
move.
I'm pretty excited about this. So I'm definitely
Nice.
going to be there.
Well, it's fantastic. Can't wait to meet you in person. That's going to be awesome.
I finally got my response to my when I applied for my press pass, and I finally I did it 2.5 weeks ago. It's supposed to take like 6 days, and I got my email back. I was all excited because they've narrowed it down. Unless you're a bigwig, if you're a podcast, you only get one press pass now. So we pushed it, Russ and I did, and we both applied. And I was waiting, on tenterhooks. I bought the whole seat, but I only needed the edge. And I got the email, and the Gmail has the very beginning of the email on it, and it said, "Dear Craig Gallant." And I was like, "Oh, here we go," and I opened it, and there was some kind of mistake, and all it said was, "Dear Craig Gallant." I was like,
But you
no! So I had to email them. Dear Stasia, she's the woman in charge of the whole
What happened?
press pass. I was like, I just got this email attached. Could you please tell me what the rest of it was supposed to say? And she must have been very busy because last night at 11 o'clock her time, she emailed me right back and said, "Yes, of course, Craig, it was supposed to say this. You've been accepted." And I was like, "Yay!" So there you go.
So we're excited. So Craig will be attending, which is very good news.
I will be attending. I was going to be attending anyway. I was just going to be one of those guys with a cardboard sign outside.
Now, in addition to Gen Con, we also just cranked out another Lost Chapter, and Rodney helped us out with it. Rodney, do you remember what we discussed in our Lost Chapter?
Yeah, I sure do. We talked about serious gaming with kids. So when you want to play some of the more serious or more complicated games with kids, what's the best way to sort of get them into that?
Yeah, that was a blast. That was some great topics there. So that was a lot of fun chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining us on that.
Yeah.
And if you want to check out the Lost Chapters, the best and easiest way is to get our new Fancy Pants totally free iOS and Android app. And that's got everything on there. That has all of our regular episodes, plus the Lost Chapter episodes, which you can subscribe to a variety of ways. Head over to our website and click on the Lost Chapter icon on the right-hand side to learn all about that stuff.
Well, can I just jump in here for a second, guys? It turns out it's super easy to do because I did it myself.
Really?
And that means it must be easy. So I went, I got the app, and went and signed up, registered for a year subscription. It was a breeze. And you know what I really liked? I liked that I could go through the back catalog, star the ones that were interesting to me, and they just started downloading. You know what I mean? So they're all queued up. They're sitting there and they're waiting for me.
Awesome. I'm glad it worked out for you. It's great.
Yeah, easy.
See, everyone's
Nice
so
to hear.
so easy, even a videographer can do it.
Unsolicited testimony. That's a change of tone because through most of this episode, I believe you'll be blowing up videographers.
Oh, hey,
How to paint a model in 10 minutes in a 20-minute video.
That's what I'm saying. It's very challenging, I think. Wait, no, is that what I'm saying? I'm not sure
We
what
have
I'm
to
saying
recognize
anymore.
our limitations. Russ, yes, right? Is that what we're saying?
We're saying that even videographers have limitations, right? Even we at that lofty height.
Fewer than the rest of us.
Well,
You're more, but still.
yeah, our brains are so preoccupied with videography thinking that sometimes mundane tasks like as downloading a podcast can be tricky. So
very tricky.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're saying.
We
Right.
need an app in there just to smooth that process out.
See, Rodney's got my back. I know how this works. That's all right. Thank you, Rodney. All right.
Aha.
So I think I think it's time now for what, Craig?
I don't know. It's probably time for achievements in gaming.
That's right. And today, hey, Rodney, you want to try to take a shot at the shout out here?
Oh, yeah, sure. Love to.
Okay.
This is from GI Aether, I think, from the dust-war.com site. And walking tanks? Yep. Dust warfare? You betcha. World War II? Check. Learn more at http://dust-war.com and follow us on Twitter at dustwar1.
It must be something about the third chair.
What, the HTTP part?
Well, there's that, and there's the rearranging of several.
No.
small
He was
minor pieces.
look, that was videographer license to make it
that was
more
artistic license to
right.
make it.
It was to
better.
make it more impactful.
The director has to make these decisions on the fly
right.
sometimes.
You
right?
can't be. Yeah, I agree, Rodney. That was a flawless reading, sir. Flawless. Well done.
I am
well done to you,
so-
sir. I stand in your shadow.
Last
Amazed.
episode, it was you and Neil. Now it's you and Rodney. Seriously, I'm gonna have a survey on people who don't like Russ, and the person who wins the most is gonna be the next
Wow.
3C.
Okay.
No, our team up's coming, Craig. Don't worry. Our team up's coming here.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh. So let's see. Well, we should let guests go first. So, Roddy, what have you been playing lately?
Oh, I've been playing a bunch of stuff actually. So this is going to be the entire episode here.
Go for it, man.
Well, let me start with Super Dungeon Explorer because that's the game that we're playing right now on our video series. Now, we'll probably talk a little bit more about our video series later on, but let me just give you a quick overview of what we do. We have a channel on YouTube, and then we take a card or a board game, and we teach you how to play it in an episode. And then over the following episodes, me and my 16-year-old and my 7-year-old will play the game. And then where possible, and in this game it is possible, we put a seat at the table for the viewers to control one of the players as well. So they get to vote on
that's brilliant. I think that's brilliant. It's just a brilliant idea.
It's really worked out well because people get to discuss strategy, and then people just vote on which strategy they want to do, right? And then we'll do it no matter what it is. And sometimes they'll vote on things that sabotage me, which isn't so nice. But again, we do what we can. So what we really hope is to be able to show people how the game works and to be a complement to the other great review videos that are already out there. We just give you a little deeper look at the game. We've got an amazing group of viewers who really support us, tolerate our mistakes, and they just seem to love the game. So
cool. So
right now we're playing through Super Dungeon Explorer. We've been having a blast with that. And the expansions coming out for this, they look pretty fantastic. You guys have probably seen some of the shots for that, right?
Oh yeah, they look really cool. Like I can't wait to see the expansion actually in person.
So that's the video series game that we're playing now. Outside of that, gaming with the family, we've been playing. I don't know how to pronounce this. Is it Junta Viva El Presidente? I'm not sure the pronunciation there. But
your guess is as good as mine, man. I got no clue.
Well, I've been playing this with the family. We're enjoying it a lot. Do you guys know about this game at all?
No, give us a little. What's the 30-second overview?
Here's the 30-second overview. It comes with a pair of sunglasses. That's all you need to know.
That is all. Well, that's awesome. Sold.
So the person who's the president wears the sunglasses at the table, and everyone else is. You're, as the president, you're trying to buy a favor from everyone else so they won't attack you. So you're promising them certain cards. They look at the cards. They decide whether they're going to protect you or attack you. So it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of backstabbing. Great thing to play with your family. You really see where the loyalties lie. They gang up on me every single time. It's all about mom and sticking with mom and going.
I have the same problem with Survive. It's always about mom. I always get sunk.
But it's a really fun game. Really fun, simple little game.
That sounds cool. I want to check that out now.
Cosmic Encounters, just got this game. I've been trying it out. First game with the kids went really well. They enjoyed it. And yeah, they teamed up with me again for that one, for an alliance victory by attacking me. So still getting the hang of it, but enjoying it.
Well, good.
As much as you can when you're losing. Yeah. Lord of the Rings, the living card game. My son and I just beat all the scenarios in the core set.
Oh, nice.
Working our three.
That's no small task. There's some tough
it isn't, man. That first scenario sets you up. You think, okay, this is doable.
Right.
And this is one of the games we did for our video series. And but those other scenarios, man, they are tough. So we beat those, and we're just starting to work through the adventure packs now. So just one of my favorite card games, period. Just a lot of fun. And Lords of Waterdeep.
Always a good one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got to play that game. Still going strong in our game group. It's a solid, just a fun game. I ordered these custom wooden figures to replace all the...
we were just talking about these. The D&D Pulls.
The D&D Pulls, yes, exactly.
They look awesome. The little... They're shaped like... So can you describe them? I've seen them on Board Game Geek.
Yeah, they're really great. They're just marginally larger than the cubes. But they are cut out in the shapes of the little figures, a rogue, a wizard, cleric, fighter, and they retain a very Euro look. So I don't feel like they break. Like I've seen some people buy like the D&D figures to use for agents and things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I like how these stick to that kind of Euro theme that this game has done such a good job of doing. But it also brings out a little bit more of that Ameritrash theme.
Right, it's a great compromise. I think it's awesome. He did a great job with those. They look really fantastic.
Oh, they're fantastic. And you can his name is what's his name? Danny Perello. He's on Board Game Geek. So if you go to Board Game Geek, look up Lords of Waterdeep. I think you search for the thread Custom Meeples.
Yep.
You can contact him there and order your own. He does a primed one, so they're painted. And because they're just only smaller, just a bit bigger than the cubes, they all fit in the box, that beautiful box. So yeah, pretty great.
Nice. Glad you mentioned that. Those are awesome.
And then I've been playing Legend of Drizzle.
I think it's Drizzt. One eye.
Drizzt, right. just broke that out. But so we've been playing that with Luke, getting started. Off to a terrible start. We've done 2 turns and we're already past half dead, both of us. So,
oh dear, that's not good.
Yeah, it's.
Now, is this your first?
We love those games, though.
I was going to say, is this your first D&D board game, or do you have them all?
We had the Wrath of a Chardalon a board game, and we had this really neat offer from someone. If we would donate that game, they were going to raise some funds for. They were going to auction it.
Oh, cool!
And raise some funds for Tom Vassel's fund.
Right.
The Jack
nice.
Vassell.
Yes, the Jack Vassell fund.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So one of our viewers really nice offered to replace our game with any other game. So that was really cool. So we put a little extra fluff and stuff in our version and signed it and that, and then they replaced it. So that was really cool.
Oh, very cool.
And of course, playing some Core Worlds.
Nice.
Well,
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, that's always good to prepare for,
Right.
your first review. Got to prepare.
Right. Do the homework.
Yeah. So we did some 2-player and 5-player games. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure. Let's see. Dust Warfare. Now,
what are you thinking?
well, I don't know if I should talk about this here or in other, because I have never done more work not playing a game than I have for Dust Warfare.
Yeah, what you're doing is other.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that in other.
Okay.
Other for sure. Well, okay. So then the only here's the thing, guys.
Yeah.
I just came back from my gaming group tonight before this recording. So I'll just quickly rhyme off some of the games we played there. We played Pandemic, introduced that to some new players, had a great time, lost. Played Wits and Wagers, which was, everyone enjoyed that. That was a great game. We had 7 players, and it was perfect. I won that. So that's
Nice.
good.
Well done.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And played Survive.
Nice.
That was a blast.
Good game.
And I won that as well.
Congratulations.
Look at
Good
you
I gotta say,
turning up
see-
the night.
achievement
I
for
gotta
that.
say this because my viewers are used to seeing me lose everything, so I gotta counterbalance this a little bit.
Right. Well, that's good. It Survive's a good game. That's tough
Yeah,
to
a
win.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then we
Not
just
easy
rounded.
Not easy to win either.
No.
No, it isn't, especially when you've played before, because people assume things. You know how this is, right? People assume
Right.
that you know what you're doing.
Right.
Often not the case. And then the last thing, we rounded out with a game of Magic. So 6-player
We won't
Magic.
hold that against you.
Yeah, we'll
Nah,
give you an
thank
achievement for
you.
that anyway.
Appreciate that.
Right.
Russ, why don't you go next?
All right. Well,
I mean, I'm ashamed to go next to you. Never mind next to Rodney.
wow. Well, I've been playing a lot of Dust Warfare, actually playing, but also prepping a little bit there. But mostly playing. I played 3 times. I played against our resident miniature war game expert, Blake, who has taken to the game like a fish takes to water.
A rules lawyer who is now going to become a real lawyer.
Yes, and he did a fine job totally disassembling my army and destroying my war strategy piecemeal. So he did a great job, as usual, destroying me there. Then I played Ryan, who, despite the fact that I accidentally outputted him on the table by 50 points due to a math error on my part.
50 points is a lot.
Well, it gets better. It was a 150-point game.
Oh my gosh, that's quite a
You
slip.
brought 200 points to a 150-point
Yes,
game.
and then it gets better. It was
He beat you.
It was a tie, except so we went to the tiebreaker, and he beat me. He killed more of my stuff than I killed of his, and of course I 50-point outpointed him. So clearly he obviously won. So cheating did not help me win that one, unfortunately. And then I played Craig.
But I'm always there for friends. I like to bolster their self-confidence
Craig
when they
picked
need
me
it.
up by destroying my army handily, but at the end forgot how taking objectives worked, thought it was 40K again, and let me win. So
Wrong
that was
game.
that was great.
I was playing the wrong game in the last turn.
Yeah, see, people sometimes email us and say, "How do you guys keep all the miniature games straight in your head?" Well, the answer is we don't. That's pretty much the line.
There you go. And that's why we haven't done that last chapter.
Right.
Honesty.
Yeah, sometimes you don't. So yeah, just when I play one miniature game long enough to really get the rules straight, then we decide to switch to another one, and we all go crazy again. Let's see. Oh, I got this brand new game called Abaddon. Now, Abaddon is the latest Richard Borg game, who you might know Richard Borg from the various Command and Colors series and Memoir 44 and Battlelore. So whenever a game comes out by him, I kind of look at it because I like Battlelore a lot. So Abaddon was even more in my wheelhouse because right on the cover there's giant walking mechanized robots shooting each other. Right. So how can you go wrong? And there's 3D terrain, which when they say 3D terrain, it's really the old classic 2 pieces of cardboard with a slot in the middle that you put together and you get
Standees, right? Like
right.
stand up? Yeah.
And it's basically a board, and it's got a bunch of squares on it. So kind of like if you imagine Battlelore with the hexes. Okay, this is a brown table with squares, And then it's got a bunch of scenarios in it where you put the different little standy pieces of terrain up. There's forests, villages, and cities. And then you have tons and tons and tons of plastic bling mechs. So there's giant mechs, medium mechs, small mechs, and then little 3-man infantry units. All plastic, all look pretty cool. And then the bases have these little crazy slots in them because you put in the bases these power crystals, which are basically your health markers, but they're different colors, and there's 4 different colors. You can play 4 different players at a time. Plays pretty good. It's not a heavy game at all, but neither is Battle Lore really. And instead of cards to manage which, the 3 flanks of Battle Lore and Memoir, the left, middle, and right there, in this game, it's kind of closer to what they did with the Westeros Battle Lore game, where you roll a pool of dice and you get that many activations for the things that match the dice you roll. Pretty cool. Keith and I played it quite a few times. Peter was back in town, and he and Keith and I played a 3-player game, and they had a couple cool 3-player scenarios. They have 4-player scenarios, and then they have the 2-player ones. This is really where it shines. And Keith and I played 2-player back-to-back, and would have played more, except the store kicked us out. So it was a fun little game. It's not particularly deep. It's not for everyone, but it's a lot of fun. I like it. If you like mechs and you like Richard Borg, you want to check that one out.
How long does it play?
Very, very quickly, actually. And it doesn't suffer the long setup times of Memoir or Battle Lore because instead of a bunch of little units with 3 guys in them each, you got to sort all the little bits out. It's just giant mech here, medium mech there, light mech there, so it's really a lot less parts. But it's got it's still got the thing where if you don't roll well, it's got the classic Battle Lore Memoir problem where if you keep roll badly and you don't get the units you need, you kind of get stuck, just like you get hand locked in those games too. So if you don't like that element, it's not going to fix that. But if you like Battle Lore Memoir and wish there was a giant robot version of that game, bingo, you got one.
There you go. Yeah,
right. So let's see. Oh, also played Fish Eat Fish a couple times with my daughters this weekend. That's one of the family favorites. And of course, they teamed up on me again, and I lost. Actually, I think I beat once, but they were looking the other way, so it worked out pretty well.
Well, there's
played Lords of Waterdeep, and I finally got a good, solid win.
Oh, aren't those nice?
It was nice. This is the craziest one ever because everybody kept trying to go for all the cards, and so they kept playing the cards, and that got jammed up. Every turn, no one could get all their cards in, and no one had it going for the quests, and it just became this giant, crazy. And then also because so many people kept going for the cards, there was not enough buildings being bought, so when they would come out for their second move, there was too many places being used. It was kind of funny. People got locked in. It was kind of more interesting version.
Oh, the intrigue cards, right?
Intrigue cards, right. I'm sorry, thank you. I was forgetting the word. So if everybody keeps going for intrigue cards every time, all 3, there wasn't always space in the later game too. After round 5 or whatever, is you get your third meeple in a 5-player game. Yeah. All of a sudden now there's not enough spaces to go, and no one had the person to buy lots of buildings, so lots of buildings weren't in play, and it got really interesting. It was actually kind of a cool game. Then I got to try. Here I got a new hotness now. Ready? Infiltration just came out this week from Fantasy Flight. So Infiltration is the new card game based in the Android universe, not to be confused with the upcoming Netrunner reprint, which is an Android theme. This is a totally ground-up new game. It is a card game, but it's not like a deck builder or collectible or anything like that. It's just a box with cards in it, and basically there's these very, very oversized cards, and these get deployed in sort of a V pattern on the table, face down. And these are the theme of the game is very Android. Remember, androids in the universe, it's basically Blade Runner, where there's all these androids everywhere taking over people's jobs and causing trouble. So your job, each person's playing a different player who's got different motives for basically breaking into this android manufacturing corporation and trying to get secrets out of there. One of the players plays an android himself, and he's looking for his little android son, basically. Another player is playing a guy who's lost his job to androids, and he's trying to get the new prototype and destroy it. So that kind of thing. So basically, you go in, and you get a hand of sort of action cards that are fixed, and then you get a hand of items, which are basically special actions you can take if you happen to have this item. And you basically go around and try to get the secrets out of the different areas, and it's a very screw your neighbor game. You can push players around. You can use a sonic item on them and make the players get stunned for a turn and all kinds of craziness. It's pretty neat. It's an interesting game. My only negative about it is the item cards are hard to replenish. So what ends up happening is you can get hand locked in it. But the good news is the game plays very, very quickly. Like 40 minutes is long for this game. So if you get a bad hand, don't be frustrated by it. Just like, this isn't the game for me. Just do something crazy and then play another round. Because if you do get a fun set of cards, it is a really fun game to try to figure out how you can best grab the right amount of data files while not getting trapped by that guard who's going to set the alarm off. Because as you play throughout the game, it's got the classic Fantasy Flight dual disc dial, like Lord of the Rings has. And as there's an alarm level, so as more and more guards spot you, the alarm goes up and up. And as the alarm gets to 99, the game ends. And if you're not out of the building, you lose no matter how many victory points you have. So you basically got to get in, get as much victory points as you dare, and then get out before the cops show up.
So a little bit of push your luck then in it, right?
Very much push your luck, because there's different ways you can go. There's sort of the safe way, where you're not going to get big stuff, but near the end of the upper levels of the building where there's better cards, you might get something cool that's got like a sneaky way to get out of the building faster, but you might not. So it's kind of how far do you go? Yeah, it's a pretty neat game. If you like the Android theme, which I do, but the Android big box game just plays too long, this is a nice sort of different way to do it. And finally, of course, I played some Core Worlds, but we'll talk about more of that later.
Yeah.
How about you, Craig?
Well, I'm just the sad sack here. After my giant Uncharted Seas marathon of the last month, I took a day off last week, so I'm woefully behind. So all I have to fall back on is my game of Dust with Russ, Dust Warfare, where I forgot what game I was playing at the end, and then Core Worlds with Russ, so that I could at least not be a complete buffoon when we review it later in this episode.
Very good.
And that's pretty much all I did.
When you're not playing your games, Craig, and you actually do play your games, where do you play your games?
Well, that's a very good question, Russ. When I do play my games, I am playing my games at Myriad Games. On behalf of friendly professional game stores everywhere, check out their new upgraded MVP memberships at myriadgames.com/MVP. Recharge each month for Myriad Money, MVP points, and MVP rewards. And I have to say, every Monday when I get that email telling me what the MVP rewards are for the week, I get really, really excited, because sometimes there are some awesome deals that come in under that little email. For instance, a few weeks ago, it was if you pre-ordered the X-Wing game from Fantasy Flight, you got that and the first 3 expansions all for what amounted to like $30 off or some really cool deal like that. So, yeah.
Did you pre-order it?
I did not.
Well, that's a fail.
I have not been spending my Myriad money well.
Apparently not.
I hoard it, and then I spend it all.
And then you're like, wait, I missed X-Wing, and it was cheaper.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are you not getting X-Wing? How can you Dawn of War fanboy?
I will absolutely be getting X-Wing, which is why I should have done it. But I was waiting. I can't even remember what I was waiting. I think I think what's happened is I've hoarded my Myriad money twice now, thinking that Descent 2 was coming out. Mm-hmm. And then when it doesn't, I just get all frustrated and I spend it all on like Spartan Games miniatures and stuff like that.
Squander away
us with that Descent too, aren't they?
They are teasing us.
Yeah,
for that.
they've been stringing that along for a while now.
They got to. You know, as my dad would say, poop or get off the pot. Basically, but he doesn't use the word poop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. But the Myriad MVP membership is what allows me to do all that hoarding of cash and then spending it in a splurge.
So, Rodney, what about modeling? You do any modeling? You're not a modeler, but I heard something about modeling when you're thinking about Dust Warfare.
Yeah, well, I do a little bit of painting. Like we did a little bit of painting for Super Dungeon Explorer, but I don't get enough time to really get into it seriously, right? Yeah. But I actually started working on building my first terrain for maybe eventually getting to play Dust Warfare.
Yay.
So I've never built any terrain, and I found this great little video series on YouTube by a guy, Rubbish In, Rubbish Out is the name of the channel. Nice. And he just showed how to make really simple ruined buildings out of foam core. And I watched it. I said, hey, I can do that. That's not too bad. And what do you know? Turned out it was pretty good. So. Nice. I mean, it's nothing amazing, but it's something functional, and it certainly it looks nice on the table, right?
Yeah, that's all that matters.
And this is a game that really, really needs that kind of.
It does need a lot of terrain. Yeah, you'll be happy you did it.
A lot of terrain.
Yeah. So let's see.
Absolutely.
So just have you tried attacking?
Yeah.
Have you tried painting the models at all, Rodney, or no?
Sorry, you guys broke up a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. Did you try painting any of the models, Rodney, or just the work on the terrain?
I haven't yet. I'm doing what some of your other guests sometimes do with their modeling. I actually have a couple of them being painted for me.
Nice.
And being sent along. I guess I could spoil here that I'm hoping to do a Dust Warfare video series.
Ooh.
So I'm going to try to teach how the game is played, and then run through a scenario with.
That should be
with probably my son or one of my friends. I'm not sure exactly what, but so we're going to have a few models painted up for that, and hopefully some of the terrain
Nice.
As well.
Have you ever done a miniature war game before on Watch It Played, or is it the first one?
I know this is gonna be the first one. I really wanted to do one. I was leaning towards War Machine for a little while there, but when I read the Dust Warfare rules, it just felt like this was, because we do a lot of board gaming, right, and a lot of card games, and I felt like this is a nice, almost gateway game to miniatures.
I think you're right.
From what I could see, like it still had the depth, I think, but not quite as much of the complexity necessarily. So. I think it's going to be a nice one to try to do a miniature series of. I don't think it'll be too cumbersome for me to pull off.
Great.
So
that'll be fantastic. And then later you have all the models done. You could do Dust Tactics, the follow up.
yeah, you're right.
Right,
you're
there
right.
you go, a twofer. Craig, how about you? I've done no. Ashamed to say, I've done no modeling at all.
See, well, this is where I kind of at least make up a little bit for what I lacked in gameplay. So all the work and all the time and effort I was putting into that Uncharted Seas stuff, once that was done last week, it freed me up, and I went a little crazy, and I painted 90 Dust miniatures.
What?
Wow, 90?
Yeah,
Nice.
90. Yeah.
Nice.
That ought to indicate to you how fast they paint up. And I was curious because Russ did his little one guy in 10 minutes, so I wanted to see how long it took me to paint one model, which I never do. I always paint in big, giant groups. And I painted one zombie. And did you get any zombie pics from the Twitter last night,
I
Russ?
did. I got zombie pics, 8 pics, and your heavy laser dude pics.
Okay, cool. So, well, the zombies, if you can go to the Twitter feed to see them.
Yeah.
And each one of those, well, if I did them one at a time, 20 minutes to get that model to that level.
Now, but if you did 3 of them at once, though, does it take you an hour?
It took
or
me a
does
lot less. It
Yeah,
took me
see,
a lot
so-
less. Yeah,
right.
It took me like an hour and a half to do 10 or 9, I guess.
Right. So the key is that's how you get production when you do them all at once. That's the trick. Yeah.
Right, but I mean that's crazy. I mean it takes an awful lot longer to get a model for any other game.
Oh yes,
to that level than 20 minutes.
20 minutes is
And
awesome.
the fact that these are popping out of the box, already primed, zip. 20 minutes later, it looked like. I mean, I'm very, very happy. I put barcodes on the back of their jumpsuits and everything.
Yeah, awesome.
Unit markings on their shoulders.
They look great.
and-
Definitely check them out. And we'll attach them to the show, too. So if you have the one of the apps, you can get its bonus content. Some pictures in there,
Yeah,
too.
so that's what I'm. So 90.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm talking a buttload of 15 zombies, 6, 7 apes because I got every character that comes in the game. Yes, an awful lot.
That's a lot of paint.
Infantry 2, but a whole bunch of Infantry 3 also.
Oh, and our friend Jeremy, the Sherpa, the D6G Sherpa there, he had his Russian helicopter there started painting it up. Got the black blades on there, and it looked good. Looked really good.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah, it
and
looks nice painted up.
on eBay, I went and I got this. There's a company called Verlinden, and they do 148 models. They specialize in World War II in particular. And I got their Verlinden 148 German vehicle stowage set to kind of trick out my walkers, and they look awesome. You get little like bed rolls and backpacks, and you've actually got a lot of stuff that's actually small enough to put on the models themselves. So I'm putting those on my medics and my officers to trick them out even more. And they're all tiny. It's like $10 for this whole set. It was awesome. So
Nice.
very, very excited about that too. So yes, I've been doing a little modeling.
I should
Now
say
you're making
so.
me want to break out the paints. I'm going to have to definitely get some paint on these guys. 'cause
Oh,
it
man,
sounds
I'm
like it's
telling
not.
ya.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's going to be too bad.
Yeah, I got to get mine
It's
done now,
very
too.
rewarding and very fast.
We had like 3 games of Dust going on last night, and I was one of the few unpainted forces. So I got to get to work on that.
Yeah, it was awesome. The Malifaux guys were feeling surrounded.
They were. Although Malifaux, man, they had a couple of painted avatars there looked fantastic. Oh, my head.
The Malifaux, the Malifaux League they're running right now has done wonders for getting these awesome, weird miniatures models all painted up.
Yeah, Malifaux players are serious modelers, and they always look good. And it's so fun to look at. Cool. So what about other? Let's see. Rodney, what have you been doing for in the other category? Any other geeky goodness?
Now, Rodney, now!
Well, I have been doing some Minecrafting, actually.
There you go.
I got away from Minecraft for quite a while, but I had a buddy that hadn't played. I thought I'd show him.
Oops.
And what happened? I got roped back into it.
Now, are you playing on the PC or the Xbox or some other method?
I'm actually playing on the PC.
Okay.
I saw it on the Xbox as well. I have an Xbox, but I haven't picked that up yet because I had a couple of the accounts already for the PC. So
Yep. My
So,
daughters are
like-
addicted to the Xbox because you can play co-op on the Xbox on the same couch.
I know it's split screen too, right?
Yeah, and you can actually play 4 players. So I go in with them, and then we all work. And oh no, the zombies are coming! Build a wall, that kind of thing.
That sounds like
Good
a
fun.
lot of fun.
It is fun. Good family fun.
So I've been playing that, playing just a little bit of Diablo 3. I had grabbed that, and I actually just kind of upgraded my computer recently. Wanted something that would maybe push it a little bit. So
There you go.
I was trying that out. It was fun.
Be careful. Don't play too long in a row because you get addicted. It's very addicting.
I know. And also Guild Wars 2, which
How do you like that?
an MMO. Talk about scary stuff to get addicted to.
Right. Now, how are you enjoying Guild Wars 2? A lot of people were excited about that. What do you think?
But yeah, no, well, they've had beta weekends, right? If you
Yeah.
pre-purchase, so they got one coming up soon, and probably by the time this airs, I'll have already enjoyed a weekend of that. Really good. I love it. It's they break a lot of the mold of World of Warcraft, where you can't really play with your buddies who are always leveling way ahead of you. It has an automatic scaling thing. When you join up with your team, it scales things. There's dynamic events, which you might have heard of, where you're not really going around finding quest givers. You're wandering the countryside, and suddenly, hey, that village is being attacked. I should probably go over there and do something about it.
Right. That's cool.
Which is kind of interesting, rather than walking up to a guy saying, hey, there's some baddies fighting somewhere. You should probably go to stop them.
Right.
And you go over there, and they're just kind of like sitting around in a field somewhere.
Right. Right.
So no, it's been really neat game. Outside of that, I haven't really been doing too much electronic gaming, but I have been enjoying Game of Thrones, the TV series.
Nice.
Loving that.
Oh yes.
And enjoyed.
Don't spoil it for anybody. But
no.
did you see the finale yet?
I did.
I have
certainly
not. I'm
won't
watching the
spoil
finale
anything.
tonight. Shh. Shh.
Oh
Yeah.
yes. Well,
Well, very, very good. Enjoyed it. I'll say that much.
yeah. It sucks when Eddard Stark dies. Oh,
Come on.
Rats.
Well, I've read the books, so they're not veering that far from the books.
Well, and speaking of the books, that's
also,
something I'm.
Eddard Stark died in the first series.
Yeah, right.
In the first season, so that was a joke. So thanks for
Misdirection.
killing it, though.
He comes back and dies again.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
He comes back as a white.
Yeah, that's the seventh book. Shh. Don't spoil that, people.
Man. But I actually have been reading the books as well. I read the first one, and I'm working my way through the second, so that's been good.
Do they make you hungry? They make me hungry. Have you noticed
How could
that?
they not? I mean, all the food in those books. I mean, it's.
I know,
yeah.
right? There's actually I've now seen Game of Thrones cookbooks that are actually out.
I've seen this too. I can confirm that.
And,
yeah.
and I have to say, I've been every once in a while, I'm like, that looks like it might have some pretty good recipes in there. So dangerous stuff.
Another TV series I've been enjoying has been Mad Men, which is also about to wrap up, and that's been good. You guys watch that at all?
I do not, but my wife really likes it a lot.
Yeah, I do not, but I've heard it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. And you probably heard as well, there's a fellow gamer on that show, right? So one of the
who's
actors.
that?
Oh, one of the actors there. Oh, I'm going to forget his name. I think he plays the character of Henry Crane,
Yeah.
and he does a TV segment for one of the MTV shows where he comes on and he talks about 2 or 3 board games, like really quickly, a little small segment.
Really?
Yeah, and it's really well done. And he's an unapologetic gamer. He was interviewed actually by Tom Vassell on their show, and just loves gaming. So very cool.
Cool.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Now, Rodney, what about the work that you're doing for Dust that's keeping you from playing Dust?
Oh yes,
This
that's
would
right.
be the time for that.
Right. Yes. Okay. So I have been sinking quite a bit of time into the game, but yeah, like we said, not playing. I love the review that you guys did a couple episodes back there. I got very excited because I had the revised core set already, and no pun intended, but it was gathering some dust. So I thought I would grab the rule book to Dust Warfare and see if it might appeal to me. Anyway, I thought it looked great, and but I saw right away the one thing that I would find a bit cumbersome was looking up and referencing all the unit special abilities and weapon rules, and I think that's something you mentioned as well, right? Just a bit of page flipping if you're trying to work from the book. So I got excited about the idea of making up some custom cards for all the units, and thanks to Craig, this is where we team up, buddy.
The term yeoman's job is definitely applicable here.
Well, listen, I designed a layout for the cards, and I started populating a couple of them, but it's a lot of work typing up all the information and looking it up. And Craig, I think you did like all of the Axis units.
I did. I did.
Which was fantastic, because honestly, it's that typing up part that is the hardest and most tedious once you've got the template set up. So I've been plugging those in, putting the pictures in. Other people have been pitching in, helping in, lots of editorial help. And what I'm trying to do basically is get all the information you need to run that unit on one card.
Yeah.
All
They
the
look
weapons.
they look fantastic.
Oh, that's
They
nice.
look beautiful. They've got everything. And we've been talking about them actually for 2 episodes now. And this is the guy. Guys, this is the guy.
Indeed, they look awesome.
So maybe when I do sit down to play this game, I think it's going to be a really painless experience. So
Right.
yeah, so we're very close to being done. We got everything done for the core set except for some of the Axis heroes. So that'll be next. And if you want to check them out, you can definitely find them on the Fantasy Flight Games forum there. I think I forget the subject heading, but it's like custom cards or something like
Nice.
that. So
Yeah. It's the I think it's the biggest topic on there now. Now that the issues with Dust Warfare or whatever it was died. But yeah, and actually in the 3 games that were being played last night, the only table not using your cards was Russ and I.
Yeah, we're being naughty. Everybody else had to bring it out.
Yeah, well, and so I got so much stuff going on. It's irony is well,
Kind of embarrassing.
It is.
I was not going to
I'm
admit
like-
that, but there it is. It's out there now.
I could I was using
might be
some
smart,
other
actually,
ones
guys,
and
because
they
there's
didn't
still
even have
little updates
scissors,
being
so I
made to
couldn't
them,
go. There you go. But yeah, I was very the cockles of my heart were warmed seeing those cards all over the place last night.
Definitely
well,
want
mine too.
warm
That's very
cockles.
rewarding to know they're being used. That's
Yeah.
great.
Oh, they are. And people were commenting like how much did they cost and stuff like that.
Ink and paper.
They're beautiful.
Very nice.
So Russ, what have you been doing?
Well, not a lot actually in the other category. I have been listening to The Stand via my Audible stuff. I am in the last 7 hours of the 47-hour book.
Wow.
Man, is it good though. I am loving. I had not read it in many years, and I really forgotten how good the book is. Just a fantastic story. So almost done with that. And so,
Now, how did you get that book though?
well, interesting. You should ask that question. See, we have Audible. I've been a member of Audible for many years. I mentioned before, and Audible now is doing a great deal with us as well. And Rodney, have you ever tried Audible?
Actually, I just recently did. I have had the first Dresden Files book beside my bed for about 6 or 7 months now. I just have been having a hard time getting to it, and I thought I would check out Audible. Heard you guys talking about it, so yeah, I signed up and got the free book. It was
There you go.
Again, just super easy, and it sounds great. I mean, they're really well recorded and downloaded quickly. So yeah, no regrets at all.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So you just do what Rodney did. Go to our website, click on the D6G Audible logo in the corner there, and they'll hook you up with a free 30-day trial and a free credit, which gets you pretty much any book, such as The Stand, which is a 47-hour book for only one credit.
That's crazy.
And that's yours.
Crazy.
It is. And that's yours to keep forever. Even if you decide to cancel, any books you get from that one credit or any other credits you accrue are yours forever, even if you decide not to pay monthly anymore. So those are yours forever. It's a great service. And
Awesome.
I think
and any time during that 30-day, that entire 30-day period that you're a member, you have access to all of the sales that they run during that time period. And the sales are crazy and they're constant.
right. And it's fantastic. And really, I think once you try Audible out, you'll love it. It's a great way to feed your brain while you're doing other things like working out or mowing the lawn or painting models or whatever.
Or driving.
Yeah, and I flip back. I do it when I'm commuting, and I flip back and forth between podcasts to keep current, and then audiobooks to to feed the mind. You got to mix it up. You got to keep a variety in there. That's what I'm saying.
Feed your head.
Exactly. And the only other thing I've been doing, I've been playing a little Diablo 3 as.
Now, is that why you haven't been doing anything else?
Mayhap. That might be a small portion of it. It is a lot of fun, and my brother and a friend of ours is playing. We're playing regularly now, so when I'm online, he's online, and we just waste lots of hours killing demons and things. It's got to be done. Demons are
Someone's
got to
do it, Russ.
Someone's got to stop the demonic hordes.
The world will be overrun if somebody doesn't do it.
That's what I'm saying. Someone's got to stop these things. That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Since last we spoke, speaking of Audible, I finished Monster Hunter Alpha, which was awesome and by far the best book. It reminds me a bit now of Jim Butcher and a few other writers who I've followed from their first books onward. And the first books are a little clunky, and Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter Vendetta, they were a little clunky, and there's a little the characters are not really super well rounded, and this book was awesome. It was a phenomenal story. It was the universe is now fleshed out after the third book. With the third book, it's fleshed out enough to really carry a really epic story that you can see developing forward. So I really enjoyed that. I'm right in the middle now of John Ringo's Citadel, Troy Rising 2, which I talked about last episode, how I got that for the price of $1 cheaper than a paperback.
That is a good deal.
Because of the sale that was going on. That's crazy, crazy good. And this is definitely more Patriot porn from the Patriot Porn King. John Ringo leaves nothing in the locker room.
Yeah, but isn't it a fun book? I think it's a fun book.
I love it. Yeah, I'm just saying. And then I am reading on my Kindle. I am reading the newest Horus Heresy book, which is Primarchs, which is 4 little novellas, basically. And the first one is about Fulgrim, who is the Primarch of the Emperor's Children. So they're the guys that end up worshiping Slanesh, which is the chaos power of excess in all things and nasty, gross, X-rated, R-rated things.
As seen in Chaos in the Old World.
Yeah, exactly. Chaos in the Old World. They're basically the ones that kind of push the PG-13 rating of the game and the books and everything. And all I can say is that short story lived up to everything you would ever expect of the Emperor's Children. And I mean, really, really horrific things happen that I was like, seriously, they're allowed to do that in the Black Library book? But it was a really good story, an engaging story. Now I'm on to story 2, which is about the Iron Hands, which are really not my cup of tea. But that first story was really, really cool, although really disturbing.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot one other.
Oh, go right ahead.
I picked up the digital copy of the Space Marine Codex. On
the iPad. You did indeed.
I did. I sprung the 42 Whoppers.
Now, which is, everybody's talking about how 42 is too much because the normal one's like 35, but as of 3 days ago,
it's 42 also, right?
The normal one went up to like 41 and change.
Yeah, well, it's the same price. I think it's like $41, and it's whatever it is. It's the same price as the paper copy.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. So
do you prefer it, Russ, to the paper copy?
Well, I think it's. Well, I prefer. I'm getting to the point now where I prefer having my reference material on the iPad, just because for these miniature games, there's so much reference material. You got the core rule book. You've usually got your faction book. You've got FAQ. You've got the latest stats on whatever. You've got that article from the magazine that has the new subchapter you want to use. So if you get all that in one spot, and then you might want to have your opponent's codex in there. So I would love to have all those books in one easy to carry data format. It looks very nice. I mean, it looks fantastic. They did it's the iBook format, which means it's a little more interactive. So you'll go to a page and it'll show a Space Marine and a shoulder pad, and you can scroll through the shoulder pad sort of like window and flip through all the different cool options for the chapter. You'll go to like a drop pod page and flip through all the different paint schemes for drop pods, and you can look at a model and it'll rotate in 3D. There have been some rumors about, does it have army lists in it? No. There's no. It's an iBook, so there's no real application there. There's just some cool built-in features that Apple allows all fully fleshed out iBooks to have. So there's a lot of interactive imagery. The book presentation is pretty cool. Actually, if you want to get really, really in the details about it, our friend Yakface over at dakadaka.com just wrote up a really, really good review on it. There's some slick stuff in there. Like, for example, if you're reading an entry on, like, let's say, the Space Marine Librarian, it'll say, like, Psychic Hood, and if you click the word Psychic Hood, it'll bring up in a pop-up window the exact rules, the stats for the Psychic Hood, which is kind of cool. So that kind of stuff is nice. I still think, though, the trend in the industry is that digital copies are significantly cheaper than paper versions. And the reason for that is there's no distribution costs associated with digital copies, right?
Right.
So that's typical. I think so. It's surprising for people. And also, I don't think if I were only going to buy one, I would buy the digital version over the paper version because it's the same price. Why not? I would, because that's the way I do things. But I think if that price is prohibitive to own both.
Right.
And I think as a good example, I'm probably the least 40K centric person in our gaming group, and yet for journalistic reasons, I bought it. But I'm like the only person I know who's bought it, right? So out of all our fellow gamers, and many of which have iPads, none of them have bought this. Because I think if the price point was $20, that would be a different story. I think the price point is too high. So I think they may have priced themselves out. Yeah. $42 is a lot for an app,
which is pretty
iPad.
much par for the course.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it's cool. They did a good job with it. It's going to be interesting to see how it all, because Privateer's got a totally different approach on this. It's going to be interesting to see how their model works, which is $7 for basically the digital version of the cards with interactive rules lookup. So it's not an exact reprint of the book. You still got to go buy the book, but it's only $7 for this gaming aid, as opposed to you don't need the book anymore, but it's $42 for this gaming aid. So it's a different angle. We'll see which one wins out, but they did a great job. I mean, in terms of what they did a fantastic job with it. Looks wonderful. I'm glad I own it as 40K reference, but just as fluff, because I love the fluff about Space Marines, and it's all about Ultramarines, so it's fantastic. But in terms of, I think they could have done better if they made it. They could have shaved off some money on that. It'd have been a better deal. But
it's interesting too, because it seems like probably that sort of thing will be used a lot as a aid. So if Privateer Press is saying, "Hey, we're not releasing the books, but we're releasing an aid, and it's $7," you just got to wonder, right? Just another reason maybe for people to think, well, maybe I should go this direction rather than that direction.
Well, it's interesting because both companies are basically don't want to chew into the sales of their books,
right?
So GW is saying, well, you can buy one or the other. We just want to have the same margin. But the thing that's not sneaky is the wrong word, but the thing that's disingenuous about that is that the digital version's got a better margin for them than the paper version because there's no printing cost.
Yeah.
So really, if they wanted to keep the same margin, they could lower the price on the digital version and still make the same, have no net loss, right?
Right.
That's the part where Privateer's saying you still got to buy the book, you also got to buy the iPhone version, so that's going to be net revenue for us, but it gives you things you can't get in the book, and it's only $7 as opposed to another $35. So it's it's a different way to look at it. So I don't know that either one is better or worse. It's different. We'll see which one wins out. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Craig, any other Craig?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just going to do this. Well, this will be the last time I pimp this, but my Uncharted Seas month-long thing at Spartan Games, I'd love for you to go check it out. It was a lot of time and effort. We played a lot of games. We did a lot of battle reports. I wrote a lot of fiction to support it and tie it all together. And it was a lot of fun. So it actually ties it in. It brings the Sky Pirates that have not been out yet, really, except for a couple models. It brings them into the story, and it was a lot of fun. So it's there's 4 new missions for you there. There's 4 battle reports that follow those missions, and then a bunch of fluff and 4 new characters because we're adding characters in that you can add to your fleets. And so there's 4 called Captains of Renown that you can plug into your fleets, and they give you special abilities and all kinds of cool stuff. And it actually, the whole thing plugs into the new rule book, which is out now. So,
nice.
Which I had nothing to do with, although my name is in it, which was nice of them. But I read some stuff for clarity, but that's all I did. I read some stuff. So it was very nice of them to put my name in it for reading.
Nice.
But yeah, so please go and check that out at the Spartan Games website, which is spartangames.co.uk, and that would be awesome. And that's it. Thanks. That's all I got.
Is that achievements?
That's achievements.
Cool.
Awesome.
Worlds to conquer, foes to vanquish, violence to sow, and medieval crops to reap. The whole world of gaming at your fingertips. The D6 generation. Born to game.
What are you doing dropping your models all over the ground?
I don't know, sir.
You need to protect those models in battle foam.
Sir, yes, sir.
There is no way that you can protect your models better than with battle foam bags and foam. No. Seriously, I cannot tell you. I have brought my battle foam all over the country and maybe someday all over the world. And it has always served me well. The 720 bag that I'm using right now carries probably what would amount to 3 dust armies inside it, plus a bunch of room for terrain and all my game cards and my little Plano case on a side case that's got all of my tokens and my tape measures and everything in it, and the rule book in the front pocket. And seriously, these are like the Mercedes of Army transportation.
And they don't just handle like transporting lots of little dudes. I mean, anybody can do that, and they do it fantastically. But what about the big model collectors? What if you're the serious hardcore miniature war game and you're like, I got a Baneblade I just built. I got one of those new fancy pants orc flyers from Games Workshop, or I got that new Necron flyer, or I just bought an entire Colossal,
The Colossals.
They've got special foam for Colossals. They got in fact, they just came out with the new Kador Conquest Colossal foam and the Crix Kraken foam, as long as they also already have the foam for the Stonewall for
that floam.
Floam, right?
That
They've
floam
got
is important.
brand new Necron trays. They've got brand new, Craig, have you seen the Malifaux breach bag?
I have not.
Oh, it's massively awesome. If you're a hardcore Malifaux player, this bag is for you. It's not even out yet. It's going to be releasing at Gen Con, but you can pre-order on their site now. Go check out their news section and check out the Malifaux breach bag. Oh, if you're a Malifaux player, you got to get it. Just saying.
Really?
Just saying. Show your Malifaux love right there. New Empire trays, the Fantasy Empire stuff, because GW's got these crazy huge models. How do you get them around? You want to go to places like Adepticon. You want to go to Gen Con and show off your great painting, your crazy models. If you're going to start carrying around these Forge World and these Colossals things from Privateer Press, you need some serious foam that can handle like a very heavy, huge pieces of metal and or resin, and the only way to do that is battle foam, folks. There's just really not another option. It's just that simple. Also, speaking of Gen Con, if you go to Gen Con, get to their booth soon because they have limited supply. They're going to have early release of Infinity models that are not coming out till late this year. There's a pair of models called Scarface and Cordelia, and they're the Merc armored team. And it's got this one big cool-looking Merc power suit, and then Cordelia is like this little mechanic chick, and she's there with it. And if you want to get that pair early, Battle Foam booth at Gen Con is the only way to do that right now. So if you're interested in them or your Merc, if you're an Infinity player, get on over and check that out.
Oh, that breach bag is freaking huge.
I know, right? That's a lot of Malifaux models, but they're getting, Malifaux's getting to be a pretty big game itself. There's a lot. You got your avatars, you got your big war, you get your
well, the thing about
constructs.
Malifaux that makes you need all of this transportation is that it's not like a standard mini game where you make up your force and that's the force you always use. Malifaux, you've got access to any model that your force has access to, and you know your mission every game before you make out your force.
Right, so you need that flexibility, and the breach bag is the way to go.
You need a lot more models than you'd normally need.
So head on over to battlefoam.com. And now, what's in the news? With the shout-out, join the guys and gals from Garage Hammer, Ohio Hammer, with Codice and Painted Table on Team Cranky at Extra Life this year. Gaming for kids, what could be better? And now the news. Sad news today, as one of Craig's predictions from last year does indeed come true. Warhammer Historicals has closed their doors. Their website has been updated, that's warhammer-historicals.com, to simply say, we're done, essentially. And it's sad news if you're a Warhammer fan. Warhammer Historicals fan. We're sorry to see them go. They provided some really nice models for the historical community. In recent news also, E3 just happened, and Wakeland is here with a live, not live, it's over, isn't it, Wakeland? Yeah, I just want a couple quick things. This is only going to be Xbox news, isn't it, because you're a total Microsoft fanboy? Huh, maybe. Which point? All right, quickly, Wakeland, we got other news here to talk about. Okay, real quick, Internet Explorer coming to Xbox. You're going to be able to connect to talk to it and make surf your web there with your voice, which should be interesting. I guess the biggest news is Xbox Smart Glass. Smart Glass, this sort of steals Wii U's thunder. It's the ability to use any of your tablets or your phones, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad or an Android device or a Windows phone or a Windows 7 tablet, to interact with the things that are playing on your Xbox. So whether it's a movie, you might have more information about the movie on your tablet, or information about your game. They can tie it into it. So kind of interesting. Microsoft's moving outside of the single ecosystem system and becoming device agnostic. Kind of interesting for Microsoft. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. All right, thank you, Wakeland. And now more interesting news. So from E3, this one more interesting to board gamers, perhaps. Digital dice have been announced, and I love the name of this one. The Digital Plus... Sorry, it's called Dice Plus, the Digital Chance Cube. A little Star Wars reference there, folks. So apparently this is a little digital die. It's a D6, and it lights up when you roll it, and it shows you the numbers 1 through 6 on it. What's interesting about this little digital die is it ties into your tablet. Specifically, they demoed it with an iPad. And it's for all those board games that are showing up on your iPad. You roll this digital D6, and it interfaces with your iPad and tells the iPad what it rose, as well as get rolled, while giving you the visceral feeling of actually rolling a die and seeing the result yourself, and then the game takes it and goes from there. Not sure how big of a hit this will be, but it's kind of a cute idea. Also, the cube will detect if it's being rolled incorrectly. For example, you can't just place it down or sort of tip it onto the number you want. You have to physically give it a good bounce. Sort of interesting. If you're interested about that, head on over to engadget.com and search for Digital Chance Cube, and they get the full article there. Back to real board game news now. Carcassonne, as well as some other old-time Euro favorites like Stone Age and others, are now being distributed by Z-Man Games. Z-Man has announced an alliance with Klaus-Jürgen Werd's games, as well as some other ones as well. So check a look at Z-Man for all the latest news. Pretty exciting get for Z-Man there. The War Store is now showing... Oh, by the way, little update there. We announced last episode on the news that the War Store was showing the SSU book for Dust Warfare as being able to pre-order. It was, and some stores like Myriad Games actually announced they'd be getting it in, but then there was a mistake at Fantasy Flight, and the book hadn't actually shipped, so everybody reversed them back out, and that's why if you went to the War Store, it's no longer there. So fingers crossed for the SSU Warfare book to be out soon. But this may be a mistake as well, but this has also been up for a few days now, so we think it's not. The War Store is now showing a lot of new hotness from Malifaux as being in the pre-order bucket. That hasn't been on there before, including some of the new decks. The new decks look fantastic, by the way. The new 1.5 rule book, some new base inserts, the new Terra Clips. They've got a bunch of new Terra Clips coming out for dungeon exploring folk. Also, some of the new models, including the Widow Weaver, the Avatar for Dreamer, and other stuff as well. So if you're a Malifaux fan, head over to the War Store and see what's coming out there, or just go to the Malifaux website. They've got a page up there with a lot of new previews as well. Fortress America is now shipping. If you're interested in the old classic reprint of Fortress America by Fantasy Flight Games, it is now going to stores as we speak. We announced a couple episodes ago the rules are up online, and so if you're a Fortress America fan, check that out also. Here's a big announcement. Days of Wonder has announced the Memoir 44 expansion that is going to be the largest equipment pack ever, featuring over 186 plastic figures for your Memoir 44 games. It includes 108 figures from the 4 World War II nations, including French, Finnish ski troops, Italian artillery, Polish cav, 24 new pieces of artillery, including 88s, the Long Toms, M7 Priests, the Screaming Mimi. There's a new beach landing craft, and a bunch of other great stuff in there. If you're a Memoir fan and you wanted to add a lot more depth to your game, definitely want to check this baby out. And finally, Colossals are hitting the store shelves. If you've been excitedly waiting for the big, giant new models for your War Machine games, they are out. The Signar Stonewall is hitting store shelves now. Also, big news from Privateer Press. We announced last episode that it was known that Level 7 is now a board game, the first product in the new Level 7 franchise they're launching. However, they've actually posted, as for Lock and Load last weekend, they've posted now some images of what Level 7 looks like, as well as the components, and a very brief overview. So if you want to see some pictures of that, head on over to the Privateer Press website. And that's what's in the news.
You're listening to the D6 generation. More to game.
Hi, and welcome back. So, basically, we thought Russ and I, and of course, Russ has been tinkering with video for a little while now, and
I like to call myself a videographer now.
Yes, clearly, with no trace of irony in his voice. No,
I need a motor vehicle. I need to go motoring between videographer sessions. Isn't that what you do as videographers? Rodney, is that what they do? Do videographers go motoring?
So anyway, we decided we had, for various and sundry reasons, actually hooked up with Rodney, who you've met now, and he, of course, is of the Watch It Played channel on YouTube, and he's got all kinds of awesome videos up there. And so we thought it would be cool to kind of delve into that element of the gamer culture, and we've got podcasts, and we've talked about podcasting, and of course we've all got blogs, and everybody talks about blogging. But what about these videos, especially the ones that look really cool and well put together? So we thought, why not bring Rodney on and talk about that? So Rodney, welcome.
Well, thank you. Listen, it's great to be in the company of another videographer like Russ. This is fantastic. We're going to be able to just talk as equals here. And,
I'm very excited. I know my...
While I vomit.
I can't wait. I'm going to throw out other... I only know 2 terms.
Yeah.
I know videographer and I know action. Oh, and shoot.
Oh, that's great. We just use those a bunch.
Do you use this a lot?
I know a really important one. Cut.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think we're going to get cut if we're not careful here, Russ.
Probably. So let's talk about at the beginning, I guess. Why do we think it seems like there's been a really big rise in video games about board games lately? I mean,
Rod, kidding. You're right. I've seen a lot of these on
what
YouTube.
do we think that is? What's the start? I mean, is it just are board games getting huge, or has everybody decided this is a great way to present them, or what do we think's the background behind some of that?
I don't know. You had Colby on the last episode from Plaid Hat Games, and he made a comment that I think is really true. You know, there's a real influence of video gaming culture, right? Like that's a very popular form, and there's no manuals in video games. I mean, there is, but who looks at them anymore, right? It all happens on the screen. And so I think board games are starting to recognize that there are easier ways to learn than necessarily cracking through a 30-page manual, right?
Right.
So, and videos are presenting some of those opportunities. I mean, we've also seen tabletop. Who hasn't heard about tabletop? I know it's hard to avoid mentioning tabletop.
It is fantastic. We've talked about it, and it is really a cool, almost network level presentation of board games being played, almost like ESPN2 for board games.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we're looking at like over 500,000 views on their Small World video, right? So you're raising awareness of our hobby, and we have people watching our series, watch it played because they found out about board games from Will's show,
right?
They come over to our show and go, "Hey, I saw Small World there, and I want to watch your show on Small World." So, having celebrities on board probably raises the popularity a little bit, makes it more mainstream, right?
Right, sure.
And I think you said there, Russ, like board gaming. Doesn't it feel like it's becoming more popular?
I think it does. And maybe we're just thinking that because we're in it, but it does feel like, I just can't get past still the fact that they're, and I think I said this every episode now, that they're in Barnes & Noble and they're in Target, these games of like Mansions of Madness is in Barnes & Noble. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking it can't just be in our heads. It can't just be like us feeling like this is what we want, and so it's we're imagining it. Like convention attendance, isn't it skyrocketing? And the number of games being produced, it seems like it's increasing. So I think it makes sense that the media around it, even if a lot of it's homegrown, is also going to naturally increase.
Right.
And I think the other thing too is we can't always be gaming as much as we'd like to try. So listening to podcasts, going on forums, and watching videos are just other ways we can feed our hobby when we can't actually be playing the games that we enjoy, right? Yeah.
Well, I agree. I think you're bang on. I think the fact that it's just become more popular is doing. I think also one thing also might be doing something here is the fact that videos are becoming more popular about board games. Do you think it has to do with is cost of entry to making videos becoming more? It feels like it is to me. I mean, for my wide range of videography experience and my legendary catalog. I've always kept.
Now, would this be the 5-minute video on how to take a 1-minute walk, or would this be the 20-minute video on how to do a 10-minute paint job?
Exactly. It's a thing. I like to consider myself the Andy Warhol of video making.
Now we're reaching.
Wow. But in that video, right, I just used an iPhone, right, which is obviously just have it lying around. Do you think though that the cost of entry, it used to be you had to have obviously very expensive, at least even a camcorder back, not that long ago was pretty expensive. Do you think because recording and producing is becoming easier, that's also one of the reasons that they're more prolific?
Well, I mean, it's certainly the reason why I'm here talking to you right now because, because it's become more affordable, it's something that, like, it wasn't my job to make videos. That was something I did in my spare time.
Right.
So because it's more affordable, because you can sort of set up a mini amateur studio in your own house, I definitely think so. And you said, you shot yours with your iPhone, right? And I saw your video. It's very watchable. I'm going to
put that as a quote now.
It's
my video, very watchable. It's like not too horrible. It's
the sound you're hearing now is the sound of Russ's head getting even bigger.
I'm sorry.
That's perfect. I love it. I love quotes like that. That's fantastic.
But you know what I mean?
It is very watchable.
You can with almost almost no talent. No,
exactly. That's my point. See?
No, you can. You're right. The barrier to entry
with
is
talent
much,
is little
much
as mine.
lower.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Because everyone's carrying around a phone now. Who is it? Scott Nicholson, right?
Right.
He's now shooting videos on his iPad.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely the barrier to entry is much lower.
Yeah. So
and that creates a couple of things. It creates a lot more content, and then sometimes it creates more content that you have to sift through, right? Which is true of everything, really.
Right. So what? I guess so. So it's easy to make them, and games get more popular. But what about the videos? Really bring? What's the advantage of the video medium? Right. I mean, obviously, it's going to take your full attention to watch a video. So it's not like radio where you can just do something else. But at the same time, you can do a lot more with a video. So what are some of the things you focus on? And what are some of the things you think you have an advantage of with using video to present a game as opposed to audio or a written medium?
Well, I think games are so visual now. I mean, they've always been visual, but it seems like the components are just getting better and better all the time. And so it's nice in video because you can really get in there and assess the quality of the components of a game when you're watching it in a video. Sometimes when you see them in pictures and you hear someone describe it, you look at the picture, and because it's flat and static, you don't get the same impression about how good the quality of the components are. So I think video really shows that off well. I think rule books are showing up online for many games, but rule books don't tell the whole story because sometimes they're just they're poorly written, right? Unfortunately,
right.
But also primarily rule books are abstract. Right? So videos take it from the abstract and shows you the rules and actions. So you can really see how the different mechanics work together. I think that's a real benefit of video in that sense.
Yeah, I think it definitely shows off. You can definitely see too. I think the things like graphic design and as you said, components coming together to make the complete package of the game, which you can't really do in any other medium. I think that brings it all together, so it's almost like you're there experiencing the game with the person presenting in the video, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think too, like you're seeing a lot of videos. I think primarily videos still for board games are focused on reviews, right? So trying to help people when they're trying to make a purchase for a game. So, if you like a particular presenter of board game videos, you might get a sense over time of what they like and enjoy, so you can use that as a benchmark for determining what you like, what you might like or want to purchase as well. So I think we're still seeing quite a bit of videos being done for reviews, although more and more, sort of like our series, are shifting towards focusing almost solely on the actual gameplay itself.
Well, I really like what you guys do, which is this idea of you're not just leveraging the medium of video, but you're also leveraging the internet because a lot of your gameplay is interactive, right? The people watching the video can then go vote on what comes next. So they're kind of like playing the game with you.
Yeah,
which I think is a fantastic idea.
Well, it's been really, really interesting. A lot of board games tell a story. Even games that aren't narrative, they tell some kind of a story, right? So, I like to think that in our series, when we end an episode, you want to come back to find out what's going to happen next. Right. I know because I'm usually quite anxious to see what's going to happen myself because I'm usually losing to my kids. So I'm just trying to claw back from a losing position in some way. So I'm always looking forward to that next time to come back and get a second chance. So yeah, I think that definitely the viewer interaction is has been a really neat part of it for us in our video series. So definitely try to encourage that. And I mean, in videos you're adding a certain amount of personality to the game as well. This can enhance a game. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been taught a game by someone who wasn't very enthusiastic about the game they were teaching. So, that can have an influence on your enjoyment of the game. Craig, I think it was last episode, you spoke very colorfully about how the actions of others in a movie theater can diminish your experience in a movie theater, right?
Yeah, and I can easily see how that would coincide with this.
Certainly.
You would not be inclined to watch a video of people being annoyed and angry.
Yeah, and so if someone is presenting that game in a more enthusiastic way and they're enjoying themselves, I think that comes across and it can help. You don't want to present a game that, better than what it is, but you also don't want to undersell it by not giving it the proper amount of enthusiasm you would give it if it was a game you truly enjoyed, right?
Right.
And I think another thing you kind of hinted at with that personality concept is the idea that you can sort of show the environment or play style of a game through video. Like if you look at one of the things I think that Will Wheaton on Tabletop does very, very well is the interaction of the players, the trash talking, the this is a light game, and so no one's too serious. But then when it's heavier games, people's brows are furrowed, and you can tell they're thinking more, and you can sort of see, is this the kind of game where you have to really think, or is this more the game where you're just going to talk trash to your friends and things are mostly dice rolls, like zombie dice or something? And he really kind of gives you that feeling of this is the weight of the game more in how people play it than some kind of measured scale, right?
I honestly don't think I ever thought of it that way before, but you're absolutely right, because when you're reading a rule book or you're thinking about a game, it's hard to conceptualize what the interaction is going to actually be like. Right? Like you say, is it going to be a real thinky game? Is it going to be a lot of trash talking? When do I get to trash talk?
Right.
What are the points? And so you're right. When you're seeing a game played in video, you get a sense of almost that intangible element of the game that's not in the rule book anywhere. It's just something that naturally happens when you get around the table with some gamers and play.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's really, really cool. I think that makes the medium great. But are there things and techniques you've seen in videos that that make you nervous or less likely to enjoy the videos? Are there things that people need to? What are a couple, like 2 or 3 things you think people need to watch out for when they're sort of starting off, or if they're doing videos now and they're trying to look to ways to improve them?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I think a lot of the things that could be a detraction for videos are probably on that list of things we just said are good about videos. So, if you're presenting a video, you're adding a lot of your own personality to it. Mm-hmm. So if your personality is not coming across well, or the person who's watching doesn't like your personality, then that's certainly going to have an impact. It can get in the way of the game for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've heard of people complaining about that sometimes in looking at video reviews or video medium on board gaming as people showboating, right? They're trying to get center stage, and I totally understand where that's coming from, and I can sympathize with that. Certainly in our series, I'm on screen a fair bit, and I try to balance that with a couple of cute kids.
Always a wise move.
Yeah, I think very wise move. So yeah, I think that can sometimes with video you have a few more moving parts that way that can be problematic. I mean, there's also the issues of possibly poor video quality, shaky cameras, that zooming in and out, that little bit of nausea-inducing camera action that can happen.
When I got my first camcorder, I was the zoom maestro. I zoomed all the time, and then I go back and watch these things. Like, what was I thinking? Why was I even? And when you're zooming, you're like, "This is going to be so awesome," and it comes out like crap. I don't know. It's kind of funny.
You just get overexcited, and you tend to over evaluate your own skills sometimes. Let's be honest.
Probably. Well, I think the thing that saved me and made my painting video watchable is that there's no zoom feature on the iPhone. Probably saved the whole thing.
There you go.
Listen,
if you see yourself overusing something, disconnect it.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, and I can see that because I think when we talk about podcasting, we always say, content is king, but there are certain things that will make it unlistenable, right? If it's just if your audio quality is going up and down, or if the hosts are mumbling, or you can't listen to them because they've got an area mic and they're all spread across the room. If it becomes hard to if you're concentrating so hard to hear and understand, it's not listenable. I think there are things in video, like you're suggesting, in the same way. Like if the camera's so shaky that you really can't follow the action, I think that gets. I don't even know that they have to be super high quality. It just means that you just really don't want it to be a point where you can't really follow what's going on, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's difficult because I'm sort of. I guess I'm not a professional in this. You know what I mean. I consider myself an amateur. Well, maybe a professional amateur. How about that?
There you go.
Okay.
I'll
give myself that much at least, maybe. So I never like to maybe criticize what other people are doing, but I mean, I think part of the learning process, if you're going to do something like this, is to learn from other people and to see what works and what doesn't. So if over the course of this discussion, maybe we can shed a little bit of light of that, as we get on, right?
Well, I think it's a good segue into what we want to talk about next here, which is your background, because I think if we're going to talk about
who are you anyway? Why don't you prove that we should even listen to you?
Well, we know you have this great video series, but how did you get started into it? I mean, were you a video guy before you did board game videos, or were you kind of like
a polite way to say it?
or how did you,
Russ?
How did you move in? How did you decide you wanted to make videos about board games?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, I played a lot of board games as a kid, but I struggled to find people who wanted to play the more complex games that I wanted to play. So I kind of drifted in and out of the hobby for several years. I'm 36 now, so it was about 2 years ago.
Whippersnapper.
A young spring chicken.
I should have known I was walking right into that. About 2 years ago, I started getting back into the hobby a little more seriously, and my daughter was a teenager, so I had a live-in potential trapped gamer.
Nice. That's always good.
Excellent.
So the more I gamed, the more I got kind of immersed in the gamer culture again, and primarily as an observer. Reading Board Game Geek, but not really posting. But I wanted to contribute in some way because you were asking, what's my background? Well, I did do some video for work. I actually worked with the government early on, and I loved making videos on the side. It's always been sort of something I've done since childhood. So I would find ways to work it into my job. Like, what we need? We need a training video for this. So how about I go work for a couple of weeks on making a training video for this particular thing? And through doing that, I got to do more and more work, and I guess what you'd say in a professional capacity, right? So, so that was something that was kind of building in the background, and so I had some skill with video recording, editing, and I toyed with the idea of doing a review series, but I kind of struggled with that because I didn't feel like I necessarily had something terribly unique to contribute in that way. Jeremy Salinas, do you guys know Jeremy Salinas or know of him? Or
Yes, yeah, we know of him.
Yeah.
We haven't talked with him before, but
so he's also known as Draken Strike on YouTube.
Right,
he used to do videos, and he was already doing what I would have wanted to do. I mean, thorough, detailed examinations of the games and the bits, and using good equipment and good camera work, and but he was already doing that, and I guess I wanted to do something unique. I just didn't know what it was. Okay, so I also had less of a passion for reviewing and more of a passion for teaching games. I've always liked rule books, which is, I guess, kind of strange.
You and Russ have a lot in
I
common.
love rule books.
Really?
See? Well, we videographers have to stick
Yeah,
together.
you
know?
videographers do have to stick together.
It's a very strange world we live in. We don't see in just black and white like you theater guys, Craig. We see all the shades of gray.
I'm sorry. Well, we don't even have the option of going in black and white in theater, Russ. So that particular statement just shows
that's what I'm saying.
that you're flying with all
limited.
guns
You're
blazing
limited
in
by
every direction
reality
without thinking.
See, that's what I'm saying.
You're just blurting the first things that pop into your head now. We work in vibrant, true color, my friend. In fact, I have a game channel that I run on my stage that you just have to come to my school and watch.
See,
It's
okay.
live performance art.
Now I don't know where Rodney was.
I don't know. I liked where we were going there, though.
I did too.
It's saying that this bizarre obsession with
You were
rule
saying
books
you
and
like
learning
teaching and rule books.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, but I also really liked trimming down those rule books to their essentials. You know what I mean? So I had that kind of kicking around in the back of my head too. But so anyway, as I was getting more and more back into the hobby, I found myself with a limited budget for games. Ross, Craig, listeners, you know what I'm talking about here. And Andrea, my oldest daughter, she likes Cthulhu-based games. All right,
oh nice.
And I like narrative games. So Mansions of Madness, which had just come out around that time, was something that I was thinking about buying. And I had read reviews. I would watch reviews. And you know what? I would read one review saying the game was fantastic. And I would read another review saying it was utter garbage. Okay?
Right.
And worse than that, I would watch so many reviews that I would end up watching reviews that mentioned other games, which then I would watch reviews for those games. And then when I was done, instead of there being like one or two games that maybe looked interesting to me, I now had 30 more games.
Right.
There is a certain level of snowballing.
Right.
But I still had the same budget.
That's true. Yeah, that doesn't grow like that.
So while reviews were helpful, they weren't always quite enough. So I found myself at Myriad Games. This is a true thing. I'm not just doing a bizarro sixth generation plug here.
A fine game store if ever there was one.
If ever there was. And I was in Salem on a family trip. Now, I know you guys have a good relationship with Dan. I'll tell you, actually, you know what? I'm just realizing the reason why I was there at all. Yeah, the first time I ever heard about Myriad Games was on listening to this podcast.
Well, there you go.
Well, there you go.
We live in a
synergy.
Small community. That's crazy. Okay,
Dan, we don't charge you enough.
Because I'm from Canada. Okay, I don't know. Maybe you've noticed an accent. I don't notice it, but my viewers.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Yeah, well, the viewers always let me know when I'm saying things funny, apparently. So, but I love that about the gaming community. There's all these little connections. So I knew about the store. We were in the area, so I seeked it out, and wow, it was fantastic. So we bought the Mansions of Madness there. We played it. We enjoyed it. And particularly, I enjoyed the narrative aspect of it. But there's no gaming group in my area. There wasn't at the time. And so I thought, how am I going to get this to the table more often? So I thought maybe I could play this online in one of these play-by-forum posts on Board Game Geek. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like play-by email, but it's play-by.
Yeah, exactly. You post on the forum what you want to do. You get some people who also want to play with you. They post what they want to do, and somebody kind of guides the whole process along, keeps everyone up to date on what's happening, right? But we really wanted to do something, a little more punchy. It was like the game is so visual. We wanted to include those visuals. So we invite some people to join us, and Andrea and I would record a video of us playing the game in our basement.
Oh, nice.
And we would use the submissions from the viewers to decide, what the other players at the table would be doing, and we would record that. So we would record a round at a time, all right? And then, people would tune in to see what's going to happen next. And we were really just doing this for our own amusement and for whoever might be, interested in tuning in, who were playing along with us. But after a few turns, it felt like we were doing something different. I'm not sure. I doubt we were the first to do something like this necessarily. Were we? I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
Listeners can let us know. I don't know. But that's not really important. What was important is that people seemed to be enjoying it, and we were genuinely enjoying it. The viewers were helping us craft an adventure, and we were playing games, and I was getting to teach games, which was something I wanted to do. And
nice.
We would make mistakes. And we would make an effort to correct them, and people seem to enjoy that as well. Gamers make mistakes. It's probably as much part of gaming as rolling a bunch of dice and getting ones, right? It happens, you deal with it, and you move on, right? And I guess I started to realize that our series was sharing the information that I would have wanted to have when I was trying to make a decision about whether or not I should be buying Mansions of Madness in the first place.
Right. Because
I wanted to get a deeper, closer look at how the game worked to see if it would really work for me in my gaming situation with my family, right?
Right.
So yeah, our videos are much more involved than a review, but sometimes when a review isn't quite enough, and you want to go that step farther, then that's another option you can take. And I don't really need to review the games in our series because, well, we're playing the game, so the game is reviewing itself.
It's like getting a sample point. It's like getting a demo, which is perfect.
People who are watching they're going to know whether or not they're going to like it because they've seen it played.
Absolutely, and that's Russ, you mentioned it, like it's like a demo, right? So we were thinking, this is kind of like probably what it's like to have a demo from like the designer at a convention, or to have a friend show you how to play. Right?
Except it's better because you can rewind it and re-listen to it in case some guy walked by at the con and really shouted and you missed that point.
That's right.
A little handier that way. Plus, it's a more in-depth demo because usually at a con they strip out half the rules and they just go, we're going to use half the rules today to keep this light and fast. And then what happens to me is like we had this experience with Leviathan where we didn't really enjoy the demo version, but we've been assured that it's much deeper in the full version. It's this kind of thing like, oh man, I wish I could play the full version. So it's kind of nice to have, because with the video you have the time to get deep if you really want to, which is nice. So when you started this whole thing, did you already have good equipment? I mean, were you confident what you had already because you've been doing amateur video stuff for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I had some good equipment that had been built up over time. I should say, if someone else is listening to this and they're thinking, I'd like to be shooting some videos for board games as well, because I've definitely been contacted by people who are interested in getting some tips about that. And I want to assure people, you don't have to have the most awesome equipment. That doesn't have to limit you when you're first starting out. It's often more how you use the equipment that you have than the actual equipment itself. Obviously, the better the equipment, the easier it becomes sometimes, no question. But that's not the end of the road there. You don't have to have the greatest tech.
Right. So what's sort of the minimum setup? So if I obviously as a videographer myself, I know all these things, but let's say young Craig here, for example.
Oh, good. I always like being young.
Would like to start his own little video production of his play. What would be the minimum? Not that he has any experience in this, but all. What would you think? No. What would you recommend as being sort of the minimum? What do you have to think about? What are the minimum things you need to be able to pull this sort of thing off?
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, it turns out you're in luck, young Craig.
Oh, good. I'm young and lucky.
Because, as we were saying earlier, the better quality video cameras are getting cheaper and cheaper. Now, I recommend something that you can shoot in 720p. That's just, people don't know, it's resolution term. You see it on televisions, right? 720p resolution. You can go as high as 1080p, and you don't really need to go that far necessarily. But you know what? Do you have an iPhone by any chance, Craig?
I do not, sadly.
No.
Do you know someone who has one?
I do. I know several people who have them.
All right. So when Russ isn't looking, you steal that because that shoots in 720p.
Mm-hmm.
So very portable device.
And the iPad 3 shoots in 1080p, right? I believe the new one does.
I think you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah, it shoots in HD, which is sort of interesting too. So yeah.
Russ, and you shot yours on your phone, as we've already mentioned.
I shot it on my phone, but then uploaded it in 640 by 480, so I really cheated out there. But
but it's the quality was again very watchable.
It was watchable.
Right? It's very watchable. People could see what you were doing, and it was clear. And the reason why I recommend the 720p resolution is just because a lot of these cards have small text and print, and sometimes that makes it a little bit easier to read. If you're going to get in there and try to show people those kind of details. So I shoot personally on a Canon T3i. It's a digital SLR camera.
Yeah.
So if you can afford something like that, then great, go for it. Especially any kind of camera that you can affix a lens to, because this will allow you to create depth of field more easily. That's just a film effect where the subject is in focus, but everything else is kind of out of focus. So that can be nice when you're trying to draw people's attention to certain things going on. I've seen my camera on sale for as low as $500, but if you can't afford that, just get the best that you can afford. There are other areas that we can get into here where you can enhance the look of the footage regardless of the camera that you have.
Okay.
And probably the most obvious one is get a tripod.
Right.
You try to get a tripod of some kind, because if you don't have a great camera, no worries. As soon as you put whatever kind of camera you have on a tripod, it's going to look better automatically.
Right.
Because you just don't have all that moving around. Moving cameras are really, really cool in an action sequence in a movie, right?
With trained professionals moving
And quite
the cameras.
often, not even then.
You're right, Craig. You are so right. But they're
Very
definitely
overused lately.
Yeah, and they're definitely no good when you're trying to teach some rules of the game, because it's just ends up being distracting. Because rather than focusing on what's being shown, the viewer tends to start paying attention to what's that guy doing, moving around the camera. So that's a big one. Lighting is another really big one, because like a tripod, the worst camera footage, even the most very watchable footage, can be made to look better when it's lit up. And there's professional lighting kits you can get. I have a Lowell DV Creator 1 kit. It's called, for anyone who's interested. It's not exactly cheap. It's just under $1,000, but it's not the most expensive on the market. And if you can't go that route, no problem. Buy some work lights. You've seen those work lights? You get them at the hardware store. They're kind of like usually they're yellow. Sometimes they come with a stand. They might run $30 to $50. Something like that for a couple of them on a stand. Now, there's only one problem with these. They are super bright.
Yes, they are.
And it's harsh light. So if you point them directly at a subject, they're going to light up like the sun. All right? And you don't want to look radioactive when you're teaching people things, generally.
Right.
Unless that's the theme you're going for. So to help with that, you can get parchment paper, which is that's a paper you use to cook with. So you get that at the grocery store. It's designed to be, put in the oven so it can withstand really high temperatures. You just hang a sheet of that, or maybe double over a sheet of that, in front of those work lights, and it will diffuse the light, make it a much softer
what a
light.
neat trick. I like that. I need that for painting in general, just to make my room brighter. That's a good idea.
Listen, I'll tell you something. I don't do as you heard in the earlier segment there, we're talking about achievements. I don't do a ton of painting.
Hey, don't sell yourself short. Those Super Dungeon Explorer figures you had on that episode looked fantastic.
Oh, thanks. That was fun, actually, and Andrew really helped out a lot with that too. So that's been something we've been able to do together as well.
I was going to say, I thought the public story there was that his daughter did it, and he just touched up a little bit.
Okay,
I mean, and now he's taking credit for his daughter's work. Who is this guy?
Well,
So, Russ, as we were saying,
right? You can't judge a videographer. The life's too short for that. For that stuff.
Once again, I'm on the outs.
I think he's on to us, is what it is. But painting, the lights are great for so many things, not just for video work, but also for painting. So yeah, get a couple work lights, put some parchment paper in front of it, and hey, your painting might even start to improve.
Ooh,
so
I got to grab those now. The parchment paper. I never thought of the parchment paper. That's brilliant.
it's really good. You got to be careful. You might think, oh, I'll throw wax paper in front of it or something else. But you'll end up with a fire.
How about this flash paper? Why don't I put that there? See what happens.
Ooh, that's good. Tissue paper.
Paper, right?
Listen, it would make for just a stupendous episode of whatever you're filming, but probably
But only
not
one.
what you're going for. Yeah, only one.
You'd only get it once.
So and the other reason why this is important, the lighting aspect of it, is because when things aren't lit well, your camera, especially if it's set on the automatic settings, will try to compensate for your poor, dark dungeon of a basement that you're in by artificially brightening the scene. And the best thing I can think of comparing it to is, when you have a small JPEG and you enlarge it.
Yeah, it gets all pixely.
Right. The computer is trying to do its best job, but it doesn't do a great job, right? So in the same way, the camera's trying to brighten it, and it's going to make it grainy and not look so good. So for this reason, you want to learn your camera well enough so you can take it off of the automatic settings, put it on manual, and adjust everything to the least artificially boosted. For those who just want the quick cheat on that, that's normally called your ISO on your camera. So you want to turn that setting down as low as you can, and then brighten the room as naturally as you can so that the subject's lit up. So I don't know, maybe we're getting a little too technical there.
No, it's good stuff. People love that stuff.
That's the kind of thing that you want to try to do. It'll, again, even if you have a poor camera, you might be surprised with the right amount of lighting. Suddenly your footage is going to start looking better because the little cheap processor in that camera isn't being forced to do all the legwork of making it look better. So
I think it's great tips.
So
what about audio? That's obviously, as podcasters, we know how important that is. How do you? I mean, do you have like super expensive boom mics, or how do you grab all the audio?
Yeah, listen. If this is an area where you can, do a little shortcut here, especially on the expenses at first. But listen, if you can have fantastic looking video, but if your audio stinks, then you may as well just pack it in. To be honest, because people need to be able to hear what's going on, right? Mm-hmm. So your camera will usually have some kind of built-in microphone, and if you can get decent sound from that, then as I say, this is an area where you can cut some corners. But when you can afford it, you try to get a microphone because, unfortunately, the built-in microphone is sitting right next to all the gears and machinery inside of your camera, especially if you have one of these older video cameras. It's going to be picking up some of that noise, right?
Right.
And generally, it's not going to be as good a quality as what a standalone mic would be. So microphones, again, aren't terribly expensive. I have, it's called the Rode Shotgun mic, and it just mounts on top of my camera. And I think... I can't remember exactly how much it costs, but we're talking about maybe $100, something like that.
Okay.
There's cheaper ones than that, though. Again, just sit off the camera, and they do a fine job. So that's just an area where, like, if you spend a couple extra bucks, you'll notice a difference. But you got to be careful. Like, some people will get microphones, clip them to themselves, and that's really nice for picking up the audio from you. But then you have to worry about that rustling sound,
right?
as your shirt moves around. So. These are just things you pay attention to and do the best you can.
Yeah, I think that the setup you have is ideal because of all when you're showing a game, you're doing a lot of arm movements, and then you have guests on there talking, and I think being individually mic'd might make it challenging unless you really had a lot of high-end stuff.
That's right. Right. And I mean, that's kind of the hardware that's sort of shooting the thing, but then. What do you do with all this footage once you shot it, right?
I was going to ask you because that's what got me into trouble. I got this recorded, and then I'm like, I just realized I have no software to do with this.
So, what did you use?
I actually Windows has a built-in video editor.
Right.
That's okay. I mean, I figured out how to put a title on the thing and take an image, take a still picture, and sort of make it the cover art, if you will, of the video. It took me a while to figure out how to like clip two together. That took me some time.
So despite your extensive videography experience, that did pose a bit of a challenge.
It did. Well, yeah, because when I first started doing videos, I used to use the 8mm film, and I cut it together and use tape.
Right.
But now,
makes perfectly good sense.
I'm just not as familiar with the more modern techniques.
Yeah, you're old school. I get
right?
That. You're purist.
Exactly
purist.
right.
Wow.
Okay. So, but listen, you tapped right into what I was going to say. You got your computer. Mm-hmm. You need something to edit the footage with, right? So yes, if you're on a Windows computer, Windows comes with free software, and it's not very terrible, right? Like you were able to figure out how to edit the footage and chop out what you didn't want. I'm assuming, right? And
yep.
I'll tell you honestly, for me, in all the videos that we shoot, I basically do a couple of main functions with my editing. trim footage, like cut out what I don't want. So I make cuts, and then I blend stuff together with a little small transition. That's it. So if you're able to master those two things, you're going to be able to do a lot to make your videos more watchable, a little more efficient to watch, because you can cut out some of that dead space or some of the errors and mistakes and that sort of thing. But if you want to go a little bit, you want to spend a little more money, then you can go with, I think Sony Vegas is a piece of software that's not terribly expensive. You can go all the way to getting something professional like Avid or Final Cut Pro, I think is the Mac equivalent, and or the Adobe product line. But again, you don't necessarily have to have those things. And if you do get a piece of software, then you got to learn how to use it. Hey, that's what YouTube's great for too, right? You can go on YouTube and there's all kinds of videos where people will show you how to cut footage based on whatever kind of software you have. So that's something you just
that sounds like you'd almost be in danger of like inverting the universe, though. Watching YouTube to learn how to make YouTube videos.
Oh, it's kind of crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah,
and now, Rodney, when you introduced the topic of editing software, and you said that the stuff on the Windows is not very terrible.
Yeah.
Where does that land in relation on the good versus bad chart? Where does that land versus not too horrible? Not very terrible. Is it better or worse than not too horrible? I'm just curious.
It's free, which is great.
See, clearly, as is not too horrible.
Right.
So it's like a category to it. I like it. Okay.
It's tricky because again, if what you ultimately want to do is be able to trim the footage, and get it onto YouTube, I think everything you need is going to be in there.
So it's like the base. It's the very basics. You're probably going to be able to do your early videos, like say your Russ's level.
Yes.
And later, you're probably, as you develop your skills, as Russ is developing his skills, you're going to want to start doing things that you can't do, which will then sort of maybe even gear you towards a more advanced package.
That's right. And the nice thing is a lot of the tools in all of the different packages, even from the free ones right up to the most expensive ones, they use the same kind of techniques. The layout on the screen is going to be mostly similar. So it's not going to be like, okay, I'm upgrading to this new package. I got to learn everything from scratch. You're going to have your timeline. You're going to have your preview of the monitor and all that kind of stuff. And upgrading to more expensive editing software just allows you to do some things a little more easily, like titling, putting nice titles on, which you're going to want to do eventually probably. Maybe some of that sound mixing that you're trying to do. That might be something you try to beef up a little bit later on. Having more expensive software might make that easier for sure. Having a better computer makes everything easier in general as well.
Right.
It's faster.
Well, let me ask you this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish up that thought. Sorry.
I was just going to say I recently upgraded my machine, and it used to take 2 to 3 hours for one of my 10-minute videos to render, and now it takes 15 minutes. Right. So just in the amount of time I'm saving there is a huge relief. So that's a big deal.
Well, let me ask you that. It's a good segue. So when you're rendering, one of the areas that got me into trouble was the different file formats, because there's like a gajillion different ways you can. Different formats you can put your video in.
They make that easy for you, don't they?
And so I guess what is the preferred, or what do you recommend as the preferred file format for getting it? Is there one format you recommend, or is it like, well, if you're going to go to YouTube, you want to use this format, and if you're going to go to Facebook, you use another format. And if you're going to put it in Flash, here's the format you want. What do you got used for formats, and what do you recommend?
Well, they don't make it easy for you because they give you so many different options you can render your video footage in. And even if you say okay, I want to upload my video to YouTube, even then, like YouTube is able to take a whole bunch of different formats as well. I personally like rendering into, oh gosh, I'm going to forget now. I think I use it all the time to stop thinking about it. I think it's H.264.
Okay.
It's basically an MP4 is the format. That's the extension you're going to see once it's rendered is MP4. And another popular format is WMV. That's the Windows Media Video format. That's probably what the free software will render to.
Right.
This is where it does get a little more technical because your computer's going to come with some default settings, or the software is. And as you learn more about the video editing process, you're going to learn, okay, I can do this to make my rendered footage look better. Like I can have it render it twice. The first pass, it's evaluating the kind of footage that's in the video. So then the second pass, it's making more accurate calculations about the quality, so you get a little less grain in there, and it's able to compress it better.
Right.
So sometimes you'll hear about things like 1-pass and 2-pass rendering. So 2-pass is generally better than a 1-pass rendering. So if you see that and you see that option, pick that. It's going to take a little longer, but hopefully your video is going to come out a little better. And even if it doesn't come out a little better, it's going to come out a little more compressed. And what I mean by compressed is size, not necessarily quality there, right?
So it won't be so big, right?
It'll upload quicker, a little less space on your hard drive if you're trying to save all your videos as well. So.
One thing I noticed too, I can't remember what it's called. Is it quick to play or quick play mode, or there's some kind of rendering mode that allows the video to start playing quicker if you're streaming it? Am I right about that?
I don't know. You might be. Your knowledge is more extensive than mine in this area, perhaps.
Well, I don't know. I was doing some research on it, and there was some kind of, when you render it, there's sort of a setting you can do to allow your video to be streamed sooner. So if your video is being hosted on a site that
I think
that allows streaming, then you can get it, because I think that by default it's going to say I won't let you play anything until the entire video is downloaded. I think if you're using YouTube, that's sort of built in, but I think there's other services that require it.
I see what you mean. Like, so in other words, as it's rendering, the bits that it's rendering, it's then able to start streaming it and make it available online to view, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like I've always rendered mine out sort of fully before I uploaded them, so I haven't really played around with that a whole lot.
Oh, I'm just curious because I was playing with that. I haven't got it to work yet, so I don't know if it really works. But that was my experience. So that's interesting, and I think that's definitely the scariest area. So I think what I finally went with, I looked at the host I was going to use, I guess, right? So I guess you can look at YouTube or whatever you're going to use to try to decide if you want to put it up there. Because I was thinking of publishing through Libsyn as sort of part of our podcast, like a bonus information. So when you do that, all of a sudden you have different, maybe format requirements than you might have if you're using, let's say, YouTube or something.
Yeah, the MP4 format, WMV, AVI, those three main ones, they're all very popular and common. And you know what? This is the sort of part, too, where anyone who's listening to me right now is saying, no, that's not the right footage. You should be using this format. And there's all kinds of different schools of
religious war out there.
Yeah.
There's different schools of thought on that, and none of them are necessarily wrong. There's just different ways. So I say, whatever works for you, that renders quickly on your machine or in a timely fashion for you, and that you're able to upload and make it work, then we'll start with that, and then over time do some research if you want.
Great. We're going a little long, but I definitely want to ask you this before we end this segment, which is about planning your shoot, right? I mean, how much planning do you put into your production before you actually start recording? And should people, we get this question all the time at the podcast, and I think it's equally or more important for a video. How do you go? What's your prep time, and what do you fully script? How do you do the whole thing?
Yeah, it depends. So in our video series, the first episode, when we introduce a game, usually I teach the rules, and that can run anywhere from, say, if it's a really simple game, 10 minutes, to 20 to 30 minutes, okay? But I really do try to teach everything. So you could throw the rule book out, right? Mm-hmm. For those, I definitely script it out. I'll actually write out almost verbatim what I'm going to say, just so I can kind of mentally rehearse it. I don't actually read that script, but I have it written out as a guide for me, because I think that's what I'm really trying to do in our series, is teach the game as efficiently as possible. Mm-hmm. And if I try to do it off the top of my head, I'm going to ramble. And I'm going to go down little sidetracks. I'm going to forget something essential. And I'm not going to be satisfied with the end product. So for me, in that situation, I script it out quite a bit. So that's usually a few hours of prep time for sure. Now, when we actually do the gameplay episodes where we're just taking our turns and playing, in those cases, I'll do some bullet point notes for myself about whose turn's going to be, what are their main actions going to be, and what mistakes did I make in the last video that I need to correct in this one.
Right.
And so just bullet points, because I think you want it to be. I think you want it to be live a bit. I think because that's what's fun about gaming is the things that just happen naturally, I think, anyway. So the less I can script it out, the better, because it just allows those natural moments to happen and breathe, and you can just get into it, as both the player playing it, because, we're in a studio. I got a camera in the studio. We're in my basement. I don't want to over glamorize this, but, I got a sheet hanging behind me, and behind that is all of my, junk. But, we're in front of a camera and we're performing more or less, right? Mm-hmm. But just because that's the case doesn't mean that we aren't actually having a true gaming experience. So the less I script it, the more we allow that to happen, basically.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
one last thing I got to ask you, because I ran into this wall in my amateur.
This is Russ's big bugaboo.
Videography, because I want to move from amateur videographer to more of a professional amateur videographer such as yourself here.
Okay.
I want to be able to. So it seems like that us amateur videographers can't upload a video to YouTube that's longer than 15 minutes. And yet you professional amateur videographers have videos up there for sometimes over a half an hour, even an hour. What is the magic? Who do you pay off to get that to happen?
Well, we're in a special club, Russ, and I can't really talk about this.
I knew it. It's the Freemasons,
cut
isn't
my
it?
mic.
It's the Freemasons.
Yes,
I'm telling you.
No, listen, it's actually not as difficult as you would think. They've opened it up a lot. It used to be that no one could, right? Mm-hmm. It felt like no one could anyway. I believe now, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe now you just have to have posted a couple of videos, and you will get a little notice pop up in your YouTube account. Mm-hmm. And it'll just say, hey, would you like to be able to post videos longer than 15 minutes? Click here. And what they're looking for you to do then is just verify that you are a real person. So they'll usually ask you to, I think you have to give them your cell phone number. They have to take something from you, of course, right? So they can own you. But you give them that, they text you a little code, you submit the code, and they go, okay, so you're who you say you are. And then they unlock your account, and you can kind of go crazy.
Great.
So it's actually not, and you may be able to do that right off the top. To be honest, it's been so long since I've been posting videos that I don't even know what the process is anymore. I think they've made it easier. When I was doing the work for Plaid Hat Games, because I did the instructional video for Summoner Wars for them, for their series, I was using their account, and they didn't have it unlocked for more than, I think, the 10 or 15 minutes. And it was literally, it just came up saying, hey, click here, and you can unlock your account. So,
cool. Well, great. Well, before we end the segment, are there any video series you'd like to recommend other people check out if they're interested in seeing series that you think
so they can
really well?
snowball and domino and want to buy 30 games.
Right.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to spread that problem around. Yeah, sure. There's one Black Belt Gaming. That's someone who was started around the same time that I was, and he's done like Red Box, the Dungeons and Dragons Red Box for 4th edition. He's done some actual playthroughs of that where he's taking players through, if you've never played a role-playing game before, here's what the experience is like. Of course, I mentioned Drakenstrike already. I know he's not making videos right now, but they're well worth watching awesome. Just for the sake of learning, if nothing else. E3K Mouse is another one. Marco Wargamer, he covers a lot of war games and games that are maybe a bit more on the fringe, print and play games, solo games, that kind of thing. And Undead Vikings is another one that covers them in detail.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Exciting. A lot of these guys are following a lot of the stuff that I would have talked about in our discussion about the good lighting, the tripod, and all that kind of stuff. So it really makes quite a difference.
Well, great. Well, Rodney, thank you so much for that insightful information. So those young videographers out there, or even more experienced videographers like myself, can go out there and try their hand at this budding new industry of video game podcast.
This has been great, Rodney. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise and your experience.
Oh, you're very welcome.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
The War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is a decade and more, people. Slight correction, I meant to mention this last time. In the last episode's news, I mentioned that the War Store had the new SSU Dust Book up as ready to ship, and it was briefly.
It was for about 3 hours.
But due to a miscommunication from Fantasy Flight Games, both stores and the War Store thought it had shipped to them, but it had not. So the War Store quickly reversed it. So it was actually great because people who heard my voice last episode went to check it out. It was already reversed back. So the War Store is literally on the pulse of gaming manufacturers, flipping it back and forth as they think their products are shipping to them.
That's
so
great.
Keep an eye on that because that got a lot of companies, but it makes you sure you know what's going to come out new. You know what's going to, if it's switched back, you can check it out there. So that's a great way to do it. And I love the War Store for the depth of selection, Craig. I think we've talked about this before. You can find pretty much any miniature war game. If it's a miniature war game out there, the War Store's carrying it. It's pretty much the whole story. And the best part is they have fantastic prices and fantastic service, which is a combination you just don't see in any industry, never mind the gaming industry.
Beat that.
You really can't. So great stuff. Fantastic selection of Mantic. Sometimes it's hard to find that stuff. If you like a Mantic gamer, head on over there. Warpath, all the new hotness is over there.
You know what's also great for the War Store is great for is pre-orders.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
You've got all their June Infinity listing pre-orders have just come out. All kinds of really cool new models, and you cannot deny that the models for that game are kick butt.
Yeah, Infinity's awesome.
Of course, the new hotness that everybody's excited about is Drop Zone Commander by the new Hawk Games over in the UK, and they're actually on the site for the War Store. The War Store is doing everything they can to bring you the Drop Zone Commander game as soon as possible when it hits later on this month, or actually in July. It's pre-orders
really
at their website.
They're pioneers for that stuff. They were one of the first guys in the U.S. to carry Spartan games, and now they're the first guys to get one of the early adopters of Hawk. They're they love their miniature games. They know the good stuff when it's coming out, and they make sure they have it and get it to you as fast as possible. So head on over to thewarstore.com.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hello everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland. Check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. Also find me on NerdApproved and GeekMom.com. This week's shout out, all is fair in love and war. Then you're killed by a pair of 120W dual phaser guns. Fight back at DustWar.com and Twitter at DustWar1. This week I have a special guest with me who has actually been on my segment before, but this time he's here to talk about a Kickstarter that has taken off something fierce. I have Ray Wares to talk to us about Sorrow of the Seas. Welcome, Ray.
Well, thank you, Nicole. It's a pleasure to be here talking with you.
Thank you.
And it's a little easier this time as far as time.
Yes, it is. We were trying. This is a little bit easier to organize this one. So you started. It's the first Kickstarter that Calliope has ever done. Sorrow of the Seas, which was based on Sorrow, which was the original game. What made you decide to redo it with this sort of new theme?
So we are strong believers that Sorrow is a staple, and it has the opportunity to be a brand for all different styles of stores. And so different consumers are looking for different things out of the game. And so we put together a long game plan for Sorrow as a brand. And Sorrow, the game of the past, the base game, has been out there for 10 years now. Mm-hmm. So in 2014, it will be 10 years. And we've sold over 100,000 copies.
Wow!
And Sorrow of the Seas is really a game that addresses some of the concerns that players of Sorrow had with Sorrow itself. So it's a little bit more complex, yet it's still accessible by most families. I don't believe that they'll have an issue with it. But for gamers, there's more to it, right? And that more enters an element of luck that families will really enjoy and have a lot of fun with. So the overall idea behind Sorrow as a brand is to introduce games that utilize the tiles in different ways so that the familiarity of the game is there.
Can you give everyone a quick rundown of what the original, I'm sure a lot of people played it, but what the original tile game of Sorrow is?
Sure, absolutely. So Sorrow is, it's a very light strategy game. It's a tile laying game where you will lay down a tile that has 4 pads on it in front of your stone or marker. The object of the game is simply to stay on the board. What you'll do is on your turn, you'll have 3 tiles in your hand, and then each tile has 4 different patterns on them, or 4 different paths. You'll pick one of the 4, lay it down in front of your pawn, and then move to the end of the path and then draw back up. So you always have 3 tiles in your hand. And you can play this game with anywhere from 2 to 8 players, and that's one of the wonderful things about it, is it scales absolutely phenomenally well. When it's the next player's turn, they extend their own path. They cannot extend yours unless, by extending their path first, it happens to extend yours. Okay?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so, again, the objective being to be the last man standing on the board. You pick a tile, lay it down, move your pawn, and then you keep on doing it. Now, the unique thing about the game is that each tile, it's played on a 6x6 grid, and there's 36 spaces to play 35 tiles. The tiles are all unique in the game, and every opportunity for one of those 4 paths and the pattern that it can create is on one of those tiles. So for players who have never played, they can lay down a tile and move their pawn without putting a ton of strategy and thought behind it, and they can compete in the game. They can see what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for an experienced player, a person who understands the tiles and what they can do for them, Sorrow is a game about real estate and occupying real estate. The paths will allow you to create gateways in which you can block other opponents from taking real estate or opening up paths for you to occupy real estate. So that's a whole different level of game.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people never even reach that, right? So Sorrow, for the $30 that it is, it actually will appeal to many, many different styles of gamers.
So now you've taken that original one and the new one, the old one was pretty, but this one is gorgeous. You've themed it with the ocean, and it has some unbelievable imagery to this new one.
And I want to say, that is the work of my sister, Dawn Weissman, who is our art director, and a young lady who is a wonderful graphic designer, Alanka. And between the two of them, they have just made this thing absolutely beautiful.
It really is pretty. When you look at the Kickstarter that you have for this, some of the different rewards levels, you had a chance to get prints with pictures on it. And I thought, gosh, a lot of the times there's prints with different Kickstarters. You're like, yeah, whatever. But it really makes you want to give those levels because there's some really beautiful, beautiful prints. Kudos to her, to the two of them for the design, because it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous game.
Well, thank you. We're very proud of it. And, Dawn and I both have a long history in art and fine art. And, because of Kickstarter, the community of Kickstarter, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to display that. So, Kickstarter is not a community that's exclusive to gamers, right? In fact, it's way, way broader than that. Mm-hmm. It's set up to fund projects for artists that typically wouldn't be funded. So it might be a theater group, or it could be a movie, a book, photography, right? All of these things are outside of the gaming community. And that's one of the things that I really liked about it, is that for Calliope, we're able to introduce the game and get an exposure to Sorrow of the Seas much broader than anything we would have been able to do through standard print mediums.
Well, you also got some great exposure, not necessarily for Sorrow of the Seas, but for Sorrow, because this guy that people may have heard of named Will Wheaton has this show people may know called Tabletop, and he played your game.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful?
Did you have any idea he was going to do that, or was it just one of these, like, he played it and then someone was like, Ray, hey, Will Wheaton played your game?
We did know about it. We've been in contact with them since January. Mm-hmm. But the reality is this. They contacted us, and we were more than ecstatic to help them out. Right?
I bet.
Yeah, well, Will is a great guy, mm-hmm. and he's a gamer at heart, and the fact that he really enjoyed the game from the get-go, it was nothing but a win-win situation for both of us. So for us to support his efforts, the efforts of Tabletop and the Geek and Foundry, I mean, I think you've known me long enough now that I'm really concentrated on building a stronger community, building stronger stores and an industry that will thrive. And Will Wheaton is a gamer at heart who can actually help us do that. And so by supporting his efforts, hopefully the industry overall becomes stronger, and the hobby that we all love and enjoy, the tabletop gaming, hopefully gets stronger and is carries on through conventions like Gen Con and Origins and other conventions of the sort. So we're really looking forward to...
I think it definitely will, because I know just from the brief amount of time that Tabletop's been on the air, there are people in different circles in which I travel who are not gamers that suddenly have felt the need to watch it and said, hey, so have you ever played this game? Have you ever played that game? And they're games that are sitting on the shelf behind me as we're recording. And I'm like, yeah, would you like to play? I will loan it to you. You want me to teach you? So it is expanding the community, which I think is great, because it is a very small niche that play these games, even though it feels like it's everybody when you're playing. So I do think it helps build a community.
Well, and you know, at the end of the day, right, we need a much larger consumer base to support the industry as a whole. So reaching outside of the gamer community, if you will, to go to the general population who would enjoy playing games but just don't have that exposure. Any way we can do that, and Kickstarter is one of those ways, and Will Wheaton, again, is another one of those ways, is great, you know, so we will continue to do that.
Now, and talking about reaching things, you had a goal of $15,000 for your Kickstarter, and as we are recording this, there are 17 days left, and you are at $27,565. Were you blown away that you not only made it, you just completely blew past your number?
Yeah, so we're very excited about the support that we're getting from the community. There's no question. And when I say community, that is both the gaming community as well as the Kickstarter community. I don't know how familiar you are with the back end of Kickstarter, but once you launch your Kickstarter, it will tell you how many people were actually coming from the outside versus how many people were from the inside the community. Mm-hmm. And currently, we are almost at a 50-50 split, meaning that 50% of the people that have supported the project are people who may not be gamers, but rather art enthusiasts.
That's right? Fantastic.
And so it's huge, right? Or the other 50%, you know, those are people that we've reached out to and said, hey, you know, we know you guys. Thank you very much for playing our games. Please come and take a look at this Kickstarter campaign. And that was done through an email campaign, right? Mm-hmm. So seeing that we have a 50-50 split is just, to me, is just remarkable. And the support that we continue to get from everybody is just, you know, it's breathtaking, right? I mean, it's really it humbles you.
Well, I think it's very well deserved, because Sorrow is a really fun game, and Sorrow of the Seas just it captures the fun from the first one, but I just can't rave enough about how beautiful it is. The designs are just absolutely gorgeous.
Well, what's even as gorgeous is the gameplay. So
that's always important too. Now, since you've blown away the goal, you've got 17 days left. Are you going to introduce any stretch goals to see if there's anything more you can do for rewards for people?
Absolutely, we are. Here's the trick with doing the stretch goals. And with Calliope as a whole, all of our games, we try to produce them as affordably as possible so that we can give you all the quality at a price point that is easy for a family to deal with as far as entertainment dollars, okay? So Sorrow of the Seas is by far the most expensive product that we're going to have on the market, but for what's in that box, it's still a huge, huge value. It's got 50% more tiles than what's in Sorrow. The ships are actual miniatures, right, that are beautiful, and there's two 16-millimeter dice that are going to come in the box. So the value of the game is definitely there. So that in mind, with the gameplay, we wanted to make sure that we weren't cutting anybody out. Again, that the gamer would get additional stuff out of the game than what he normally did, but the family enthusiast would also not be intimidated by the game itself, right? With the stretch goals in mind, right, what we're trying to do is produce items that the supporters can actually utilize and play in their game, okay, without changing the price scale of the product, so that we're able to give them something that's unique and cool and that they want to utilize and not raise the price on them, right?
Right.
So, and that takes a lot of ingenuity, and it just doesn't come right? So, with that in mind, we've spent the last 4 or 5 days, actually since Friday afternoon, test playing alternate tiles for the game. And we have some really cool stuff. I'm trying to figure out a way that I can actually do a survey to the community. I'll be sending out an update here in a little bit about the tiles, and let them actually vote and lead us in the direction that they would like us to go in.
Oh, that's a great idea, because then you get the feedback from the community, which you've talked about is so important to you and to what you're trying to do with Suro.
Absolutely. So, it may seem like since Friday I've been a little bit quiet on the Kickstarter front. Excuse me, but in fact, it's only because my head has been buried in test playing tiles.
So that's a good reason to be quiet.
So there are stretch goals coming.
Excellent. Well, Ray, I am so excited that you made your goal. I hope that you're able to make even more with your stretch goals, and I can't wait to see this game for real on a table in front of me. And congratulations for the success you've had, and I wish you even more.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And just so people who don't know, as far as gameplay, the key thing to keep in mind with Sorrow of the Seas is that in addition to playing your opponents like you would in Sorrow of the Seas, you're actually going to be playing the board at the same time. So there are random elements that can knock you out. So you have to be aware of them as well as your opponents.
Excellent.
So that's the difference. But great. I'm looking forward to reaching out to people and having them play our games. We're really excited to be able to produce them for them.
Wonderful. And so if people just head to Kickstarter and you search Suro of the Seas, it's TSURO of the Seas, you will find the Kickstarter and see all the beautiful artwork and the cool ships, and throw some money their way and get yourself a copy of the game too.
Come to Gen Con.
Come to Gen Con. That's right. You're going to have a big debut party thing at Gen Con, right?
Yeah, we're going to have the VIP party there, and we would love to see everybody there, and our special guest, Nicole.
Yes,
Wakeman.
I'm going to get to go. Yay, it'll be fun. I can't wait for Gen Con. It's not that far now. Summer's almost here. Well, thanks again so much, Ray, for joining us. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you.
And if you're looking for a magazine about war games, and who isn't, let's be honest, a magazine that's not a giant ad for one particular company, no, a magazine that spans the scope of miniature wargaming, covering historicals like no one else has ever dreamed to cover them.
No.
Then you want to check out War Games, Soldiers, and Strategy magazine. Craig, what is in issue 61, the newest hotness?
It's funny that you should mention that, Russ, as I'm flipping through issue 61 right now, and I'm looking at all kinds of cool things about colonial warfare in the 19th century.
Oh, neato.
That's all kinds of cool stuff. So refighting the Battle of the Nyasain River. I mean, I cannot, for the life of me, pronounce any of this stuff.
Yeah,
Fashoda, kind of. I could put money down that may be correct.
May be correct. I'll put money down. It may be correct.
Yeah, exactly.
$5 says I might be right.
Okay, Maywan. No, I can't do that. But we're talking Afghanistan, Africa, all over the world. Of course, the century of colonial expansion and the pushback from the indigent, the locals the locals.
Yeah,
We'll call them the fuzzy wuzzies, as they call them over in Britain.
Right.
And all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, I love the pictures. I'm looking at all these photos here now. They're just fantastic. The scenes look like dioramas almost, but they're still playable models. That's the thing. They do a great job with these photos. The painting's fantastic. The modeling's fantastic. You're going to see models from ranges you didn't even know existed. Yeah. It's just a great way to really sit back and, if you're a historical miniature war gamer, get right into what you love. But even if you're not a historical miniature war gamer like me, you can really appreciate and get into what other gamers are doing with models in these different genres and really just be awed by it. It's just fantastic read.
Now, and remember that although each issue has a theme, there are other things in the issue as well. For instance, in issue 61, you're also they look at a variety of World War II company level rule sets. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking to do World War II and you want to do company level, that's a pretty big game.
Yeah.
The Trojan War, fight the entire Trojan War in 90 minutes.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Seriously.
Right.
It's all kinds of cool stuff.
So head on over to WSSmagazine.com, and what if they want to use that fancy pants D6G code there, Craig? What does that
Well, when they're in the web shop, if they use the coupon code D6G at the website, they will get 15% off any combination of orders that they make when they're there.
And how could that not be a good deal? It is a good deal.
It is a great deal.
WSSmagazine.com.
I'm Dan, your friendly professional game guide. Welcome back to When You Wish Upon a Game, where we discuss ways to make the games industry better. We are overwhelmed by 75% good games. There are so many games that hit on one of many elements, components, theme, mechanics, etc., but they miss on some or all of the rest. How many times have you played a game and said, why did they do this? Or why did they use that component there? Many of these deficiencies are obvious to the casual gamer on their very first play, so why aren't they corrected during development and production? There's too big a rush to get things out by most companies, and there is too much close to the vest mentality, where the only people playing games are those folks who are already familiar with the games. Without fresh insight and input during development, designers can settle into a self-reinforcing system of, that works for me, rather than looking for what would be best overall from a broader perspective. There's an emotional investment involved when you're creating something, and designing games is no different. The best designers partner with dispassionate developers who can temper their creative energy with guidance towards the best version of their design to share with the world. And that may be very different from the best version for the designer to play with themselves and their close friends in their basement. Developers and publishers are there to attend to the hundreds of minute details associated with taking a great game concept and turning it into a top-notch final product. There are a ton of variables involved in increasing the quality of games from that 1% inspiration to 100% or more done, and most games stop at 75%. Not intentionally, but because the companies creating them do not give enough attention to all the elements involved. Pushing games from 75% to 85% or 95% or 105% takes a ton of time and effort, and so many times, companies are content to just make it good enough, whether due to a lack of energy, time, or other resources. They cut corners on components because they can't afford higher quality items. They don't really grok what a game is and what type of gamer is going to enjoy it. They just come at it from a kind of analytical perspective and say, well, it works, so therefore it's done. They don't properly promote games because they decide they don't need to be out in the local community, at local conventions, at game stores, at game clubs, in game groups. They settle. And in an increasingly crowded market, settling is not good enough. That's what I see when I wish upon a game. How about you? How many games do you see that are 75% done? What's missing? What do you see on your first play that you say, why did they do that? Or this would be so much better if they'd just done this. What should we as consumers be demanding of the people who make games? What's your standard for excellence? Email me at wish@gamesalute.com. Thanks for listening and have fun playing.
Game Salute wants to know, is your local store a select store? If it's not, get on in there and get them to register, my friend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's right. Game Salute is an awesome website. They take care of the latest news. You know who writes news for them now?
Who writes news?
Guess who writes news for Game Salute?
I don't know. Who writes news for Game Salute?
Tom Vassell. I know, right? Tom's like closing down Dice Tower News, and he's writing news now for Game Salute right now. That's
wow. Game Salute is like taking over the world.
Dan and the folks at Game Salute, they're bringing together the best of the best in the industry to really help make sure that everybody's getting quality stuff. Whether you're a customer, want to get the latest news, whether you're a store, you want people to find you, use StoreLocator.com. Go on to GameStoreLocator.com. Make sure you're signed up there. If you are a Kickstarter, trying to get something out there, trying to get some advice, trying to make sure you're not forgetting anything like, I don't know, the cost of shipping. We found out from Colby, costs $10,000 sometimes. Game Salute select stores, Kickstarter Select, they'll make sure Springboard certified. They'll make sure that your Kickstarter program is ready to go. You don't miss anything. And take care of everything. Check them out at GameSalute.com for all the latest info.
Hooah!
Welcome back. Now we're excited to talk about a game actually came out last year, 2011, published by our friends at Stronghold Games.
Late 2011.
Yeah. This game, of course, is Core Worlds, which is designed by Andrew Parks, and it is a 2 to 5 player game. And this is basically a deck building game, but it doesn't feel entirely like a deck building. It's got some little angles on it that are kind of cool, so you want to hang around even if you're not a deck building fan to listen to how this one works. It takes their estimate is 20 minutes a player, so typically it's 60 to 2 hour game, 60 minutes to 2 hour game, depending on your player count. And the price point is $44.99. That's the MSRP.
Yeah.
We'll get into value of that in a second. But Craig, why don't you read us the official theme / fluff of the Core Worlds universe?
Okay. The ancient galactic realm, ruled from the core worlds of the galaxy, is waning. Now the barbaric kingdoms that lie beyond the galactic frontier are amassing their strength, choosing this pivotal moment to strike at the heart of the fading republic, establishing new empires built upon the ashes of decaying civilizations. But these outer systems are not yet strong enough to engage the forces of the core worlds directly. The young kingdoms must first gnaw at the edges of the crumbling frontier, developing new types of units and shrewder tactics. They must build up their energy resources to launch magnificent fleets and overwhelming ground forces. Then, when the time is right, they must strike at the galactic core itself, claiming the most exalted planets for themselves. The barbarian kingdom that achieves these goals will carve out the greatest empire in the galaxy.
Ooh, how's that sound, Rodney? What do you think?
I'm ready to play.
There you go.
So basically, I was telling Craig, it's like the End of Rome sci-fi version, pretty much.
It is, yeah.
No, that's a great definition of it for sure.
So so you're playing. In case you can pick out that each player is playing an invading barbaric spacefaring horde, essentially coming in to wipe out the once awesome and fruitful, heavily developed society. And so basically, the game's theme is you're going to work from the outer rim of their civilization, sort of at the smaller planets, and work your way into the industrial planets and the factories, and eventually you get to the center of their civilization, or their core worlds, if you will, where all the real value is. And that's the goal of the game. So let's look at what's in the box. Hey, Roddy, what does it sound like when you open up the Core Worlds box? Do you know?
No, what does it sound like?
Craig, what do you think? What does it sound like?
When it goes...
There you go. Very sci-fi. I like it.
Man, I must have the wrong box.
You got the wrong box, man.
I got gypped.
Well,
Steven hooked us up with
you got to know
Steven.
Steven Bonacore sent you the box of the sound effects.
All right, now I know.
Yeah.
So inside the box, you get 5 little thin and wide player mats, and these are for tracking your various resources during the game. There is also quite a bit of cardboard bits in here. Now, this is primarily a card game, but there's lots of little bits in here. There's a round marker, a destiny marker, a big marker for tracking who's first player. There are 5, the player boards, already mentioned those. There's 5 action markers for the player boards, 5 energy markers, 12 energy tokens, and 3 energy surge tokens. So not a huge, not like, Fantasy Flight level token contained, but there's some tokens in there. And then also lots and lots of cards, over 120 cards. Divided into several sections. We'll get to those in the game. Which
is fitting for a deck building game.
Right. There's sector cards. There's homeworld cards. There's everybody's got their own starting deck for each of the factions, which is 16 cards per deck.
Then there's 5 factions to start with.
Yeah. And then there are one for each player. And then there are galactic decks, which represent the different areas of the galaxy. So Galactic Deck 1 is sort of the outer rim, and then Galactic Deck 2 is getting a little more interesting. Galactic Deck 5 is the core world deck. And lots of cards in these as well. And I don't know, I think the artwork on these cards is fantastic. What did you guys think of the artwork when you looked at these things?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things I liked about it right off, to be honest. It brought me into the theme quite quickly, and the card layout was fine, but the artwork, it was really nice, really sharp.
Rodney, did you ever play the old computer game Homeworld?
No, I didn't. I played, I don't know, people might have heard of Elite.
Yes, Elite.
Remember that game?
Yeah, so Homeworld was one of the first 3D space RTS games.
Okay.
By Relic, actually, who later went on to make Dawn of War. And Homeworld was fantastic. And the reason I bring it up is the artwork from this game is very evocative of the capital ships in Homeworld.
Okay.
Even the box cover itself, and which I loved, so it's sort of got that going for it. But yeah, I think Craig, what did you think of the artwork?
I think the artwork, most of the artwork is absolutely beautiful. There's a couple, like this, the Galactic Grunt card. It looks a little odd. Like there's a perspective thing going. There's an awesome looking troop transport ship landing in the background, and there's a weird little perspective thing going on. But that would not have even occurred to me, except that most of the artwork is really, really top notch.
Yeah.
Even that one's great. It's just a little funky compared to the others.
Now, what do you think of the value in the box? Because $45 is a lot for a card game, but there's a lot of those at that price point nowadays. So does this feel sort of standard for the price point?
Well, it surprised me when I opened the box. First of all, I should have been surprised because it didn't make any funky noises. But then after that, there is quite a few little punch out pieces which I wasn't expecting. This being a deck building game. Those components seem fine. I thought the player mats, I probably would have been happier if they were a little thicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but they do the job, right? So there's no problems there. My box, how was your insert?
Inserts. It was. I throw the inserts away. I never keep.
Yeah.
The inserts.
Okay. So then no worries there. I'm probably gonna have to do the same thing on this one as well.
Yeah, unless it's like Days of Wonder or now apparently Wizards of the Coast. Most companies don't have good inserts anymore. So
yeah, Lords of Waterdeep spoiled me, I think, a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yep.
But the card quality is very good, eh?
Yeah, I think the money definitely went into the artwork. I think we've talked before with game designers and how the artwork's expensive, and you can tell that's the artwork is definitely, a lot of these ships is top notch. Like some of the stuff you'd see in higher, larger companies' games. So I think that's where the money went. But I'm trying to remember what Dominion costs, but I think they're sort of in the wheelhouse of those price points, so it's not super crazy. But I still kind of, when you're playing with essentially a card game, $45 is just like a little high for me.
When I asked if it was $50 because that's what the box size looked like it should be, and you were like, "Oh no, it's cheaper."
Not much,
I thought, oh, that's really good, but then it's not that much. Yeah, 45 to me is I can't really tell. I mean, if you like card games, then 45 is probably going to be good.
Yeah.
For me, it's a little more than I would expect to pay for that much paper and card, but you can tell that a lot of money, focus, and attention and talent went into all that artwork and the graphic design.
Yeah, I agreed.
Yeah.
Also comes with a very nice full color rule book as well. I should have mentioned that. I don't think I did. All right, so let's get into setting up the game. And so, Randy, you just jump in here when you feel proper. But basically, what we're going to do is we're going to lay out some the sector cards. Now there are sector cards for the 5 sectors. Rodney, do you know the 5 sectors, Rodney?
I know the first one is the barbaric worlds.
Yeah,
am I right?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh shoot, I forget what the second was. Frontier or something.
Yes,
I think.
Wow,
good memory.
Let's see. I know the last one's Core Worlds.
Yes, very good. I think there's like an industrial world, or is it? Anyway, I can't remember. You think I'd write these down, but I did not do that. But basically, there's these little sector cards that have 2 little numbers on each card, and so basically, the card itself represents the entire sector, and they get deployed horizontally in a row. And there's 2 little turns for each card. So there's going to be a token that goes on these, and this is going to track the turns of the game. And as your turn counter moves from one spot to the other, eventually it'll progress to the next sector. So that sort of represents the barbarian fleets moving in deeper and deeper into the system and getting closer and closer to the core worlds. And then above these little sector cards we lay out, we're also going to put the different galactic decks. So there's a galactic deck where the bottom of each card has a 1 or a 2 or a 3, and all the cards with a 3 are for the third sector, which goes with the sector 3 card. So as you get deeper into the system, you're going to get access to different planets to invade and different resources to get, and that's going to represent the fact you're getting to richer and richer worlds, which are tougher and tougher to take over, but they have greater and greater rewards.
Right.
So your goal as a barbarian fleet is, while you're out in the
Hinterlands.
Yes, the hinterlands, the edges of the known universe there, you want to be making sure you're massing your forces powerful enough so that when you get a little deeper, you're going to have what it takes to take over these fancier worlds.
I really like this part of it because now I didn't say this earlier on, but I maybe should. I'm not a real space guy. I like Star Wars and all that as much as the next geek, but I'm not drawn to that the same way that I am to fantasy or even like World War II type games. So this game had to sell me a little bit on the theme, and I really liked the way that they tied the theme to the game mechanic of, okay, in order to get to these better cards, your turn is progressing, and now you're unlocking these more advanced decks of galactic cards, which are going to have better things in them. So that I thought was really neat, just moving through, opening up the new decks, options, and that it was tied to this idea of traveling through space. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, that really is what I like that part too. It really feels like there's actually a sort of a story going on. It sort of breaks the fact that it's simply a deck building game and kind of gives you that feeling of something's happening, and it kind of brings the theme in. Craig, did you feel that too?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely did, and I'm on record. I'm not a deck building kind of guy. Really didn't like Dominion, and I was told over and over again, "Oh, this is Dominion for space." So I was like going into it going, okay. But right there off the bat, you can see a strong difference. And that theme, which I think is much better handled in Core Worlds. And it's right off the bat, as you set up those it's 6, right? Am I making a fool of myself? 5, sir, 5, right, 5. Those 5 little cards that kind of set up for you the graphic design of what you're going to be doing, and you're going to be spending 2 turns in each area so you can figure it out. But as you go in, you can just imagine yourself getting deeper and deeper into the empire, so the systems are more popular, more powerful, but at the same time more difficult to take out. So I really liked that structure and that feeling and what it did for the ambiance of the game, if you will.
It also prevents a little issue that Thunderstone has, which is the idea that all of a sudden a too powerful thing shows up early in the game and no one can take it out, right? So it keeps a definite feeling of progression and sort of that leveling up little RPG element to the game as well. Which is
You're right. It forces the pacing,
right?
But it does it in a way that doesn't feel forced,
right?
You know what I mean? Like it feels like, this makes sense.
This is a story, but it's also controlled pacing.
Of course, it's going to get harder,
right? It's a cool. I thought it was a very clever mechanic.
It's much more like, that makes perfect sense.
Right. So basically, you set up these little sector cards, which is doing all the things we discussed, and above each sector card is the little galactic deck, which is the specific cards you're going to get when you get to that sector. Also, you're going to put the round token on the first sector card in the 1 position, because that's going to count the turns, and as the turn counter moves, it's also going to show you where you are in the galaxy. Now, each player then is also going to be dealt a random homeworld card. There are 5 different homeworlds, matching the 5 different factions in the game, which is, of course, going to be that's why the player count is maxed out at 5. So you deal each player one of those, and that's going to dictate to them which faction they're going to be playing. And also, each homeworld has a different number next to it. Lowest number goes first. You're also figuring out first player in addition to figuring out which faction you play. You then give each player their matching starter deck. So there's a predetermined set of cards that you will use as your faction. They all have your faction logo on them. Each starting deck is actually identical for every other player, except each starting deck also includes a hero, and the hero is specific to the faction. So a little bit of fluff flavor there. Yeah. You've all got the same number of fighters, same number of grunts in your starting deck, and some other things, but your hero is unique to your deck and gives you a little bit of a different angle. Then after you get your faction deck, you're just going to give each player their little mat and goes out in front of them. And your mat's got a couple big areas, but its primary purpose is to track resources. There are 2 primary resources in the game. There's the number of actions you have remaining this turn, and there's the amount of energy you have. And so basically on your mat, you're going to get 2 tokens also, 1 token to track your actions and 1 token to track your energy. Also, what's nice about the mats is it gives you 2 quick references. On the left-hand side, it gives you your choice of actions per turn, and on the bottom, it gives you the turn sequence as well. So basically, it's a handy quick reference card as well as a little tracker. Now also, after we get our mats, the players get the lowest homeworld number will also get the Destiny token, which is a fancy word for player 1 token. It's a big little blue disc there. So you give that to the player 1, and you're pretty much ready to go. You're going to want to also take out a bunch of those energy token chits and put them to the side so they're ready to go. And in a 2-player game, you did not need the energy surge tokens. But in the other player, in a 3 or 4-player game, you do need to use some energy surge tokens. So the energy surge tokens is little cardboard blue tokens. And it turns out, based on the number of turns in the game and how the game works, if you play a 3 or 4-player game or 5-player game, not every player will get the same number of times to be player 1. And there is an advantage in the game to being player 1. So cleverly, there's a mechanic that says, well, if you're playing in these games, players who are in these seats get these extra energy surge tokens, which will give them a 1 use per game per energy token bonus energy in the game. So it counterbalances the fact they don't get to be player 1 as often. And it's pretty clear in the book how you use that. And basically, you got one of these tokens, you can spend it during the energy phase to get, I think it's 2 more energy. So that's how those work. Or 1 more energy, sorry. Did you end up using those, Rodney?
Well, one thing I liked about this, going back to, everyone getting a random homeworld, and that dictates the first player. Let me go on a little quick rant here. I'm getting a little tired of games where it's like, the player who goes first is the person who last traveled to a city. Yes. Or the person who was last sick. Right. Or the person who was last, like this game, it could have been something like the person who last traveled to space or something. I don't know. Right. It just, I'm glad when a game says, here's how you determine player 1. And it makes it very simple.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, it's getting tiresome, and I like it built into the game, and it's great too because it's part of the core game. You got to deal with the factions somehow, and that takes care of 2 things: randomizing factions and getting player 1. So it's a nice.
Yeah, exactly. People, you don't know exactly what you're going to get, but the decks are similar enough. You don't feel like you don't feel like the designer had to do a whole bunch of crazy balancing,
right,
to make the factions work together. So yeah, that's neat.
Yep. So that's pretty much setup. Setup's not really that hard, actually. The biggest part is dividing your decks out into the various sector decks, but if you put your cards away properly, that's already pretty much done, and shuffling those up, and then give everybody the starter decks, and you're pretty much ready to go. You got your mats out, you got your tokens on them, you're ready to rock. Yep. Now, the whole goal of this game is to achieve empire points, they're called, which is basically victory points, but this is how powerful and omnipotent your empire is. Now, there are bonus things, but basically, on all the cards in the upper right-hand corner, there's a red circle with a white number in it. That is the number of empire points that card is worth for having in your empire. And in your empire is defined as basically a card your own, whether it's in your discard pile, your draw pile, in your war zone, which is the area under your mat, or somehow played in your area. Any card you own, at the end of the game, you're going to go through all those cards, add up all the red numbers in the right-hand corner. You get those victory points, plus any bonus victory points for any special cards you haven't played that say you get bonus victory points for this. So that's basically your goal, is to accrue those things. And the most common way you're going to get them is by conquering planets, because most planets do 2 things. They generate energy, which is a resource you really need, and they also, as you go farther and farther into the game, are worth more and more victory points for owning them as well. So when I teach, I think someone asked us how we teach games recently, and so my big thing is tell your players what they're going for in the beginning so they can kind of keep their eye on it as they're learning the rest of the rules.
Always a good idea, yeah.
So there you go. So now, there are really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 phases to the game, 6 phases to the game, but they're really very simple. Okay, the first phase is the draw phase. Each player draws cards from the top of his deck until he's got 6 cards in his hand.
Yep.
That's simple. The next phase is the energy phase. So, and now keep in mind too, energy and actions do not carry over from turn to turn. Okay, big thing to remember. So if you don't use all this stuff, you lose it. All right. So after you draw your cards, you go to the energy phase. The energy phase, you look at all the worlds you have face up on the table in front of you, and you add up. In the upper left-hand corner of each world, there's a big yellow circle with a number in it, and that's how much energy that world generates for your empire. So you add up all those numbers, and you put your energy token on your player mat at the number your worlds have generated for the turn. At this time, also, you can do things that can generate more energy, but you got to make the decision right now before the next phase, which shows which kind of card you can buy. So at this time, if you got one of those fancy energy surge tokens, you can play it now for bonus energy. There are also some cards you can play in the energy phase to give you bonus energy, and some other things in the game that you can do. You can discard 2 cards to get bonus energy on your homeworld, things like that. So there's actions you can take that are written right on the cards to get extra energies, and now's the time to do that.
And if you can get extra energy, you want to do it, because this game, you got to have energy to play those cards from your hand.
The energy is a huge resource, and it's very, very valuable, especially in the late game. You want to make sure as you're playing, the most fundamental strategy I can teach you about this game is make sure you're getting world to generate more energy, because by the time you get to like the later sectors, if you don't have enough energy, you won't be able to do anything. Energy is key. All right. Next is the galactic phase. And the galactic phase, this is the part that's going to be a little familiar to other deck building players. You got to build that little area where all the cards are face up that you can buy this turn, right? How do you add cards to your empire or your deck, right? So there's this area called the central zone, and it's going to be sort of in the middle of the table between all the players. And what you're going to do is, depending on which sector you're in, so at the beginning of the game you're in Sector 1, you're going to draw cards from the sector, from the galactic deck above that sector, and put out a certain number of cards face up depending on the player count in the game. So when Craig and I are playing 2-player, that's 6 cards, and there's a little handy table in the book, and that number goes up depending on the player count, right?
Right.
Now, there's a couple rules you want to make sure you observe while you're putting the cards out. And the 2 rules are after you put all those cards out, there must be at least 1 world to invade for every player at the table. So if you do this little exercise, and Craig and I are playing 2-player, and only 1 world is showing, we have too few worlds, and we got to keep drawing cards until we get another world.
Yeah.
Also, after you've got enough worlds, you also
one
must...
fewer card. I mean, 1 fewer world. You need 2, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
till you get enough.
in your example, yeah.
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. That's okay.
You
We
also
forgive
must
you.
satisfy the secondary requirement, which is you must also have at least the number of non-world cards out there to buy equal to the player count as well. So if you're in a 3-player game, there should be at least 3 worlds and at least 3 non-worlds out there in the galactic market there to be purchased. Okay?
Right.
So very important. If you're short on either of those things, you keep drawing cards until you satisfy that requirement. So it can happen, and it did to Craig and I, that your galactic phase, you build a market bigger than the suggested size for the player count. But oftentimes you'll be fine in only needing 6 or whatever your goal is for the players.
I was surprised just how often it worked out.
Yeah, it did work out pretty often.
Right, yeah.
They've got a good ratio there.
What kind of magic is in these cards? But yeah, most of the time it works out.
Now, so that's the galactic phase. Then comes the action phase. I'm going to get to the action phase in a second. When the action phase, which you can do in the action phase in a second, but basically what happens in the action phase now is we're going to go around the table, and each player is going to take 1 action, and then the next player goes. So I'll take an action, then it's Craig's turn. Craig takes an action, and then Rodney goes. Rodney takes an action, then it's my turn again. I take another action, and we keep going around and around taking actions until we run out of energy or actions, or both, and then we pass. So I might run out of energy first and be like, I'm out of energy, I pass. As soon as I pass, any remaining energy or actions go to 0, and I am out for the turn, and then Craig keeps playing and Rodney keeps playing until everybody has passed and is out of energy. So the action phase is a repeatable phase of the turn that can happen as many times as people can afford to have it happen, right?
Yep.
And we'll go through the different actions you can do. And that's the meat of the game right there. After that, then, it's the discard phase. And in this game, you do move through your cards because you can only keep 1 card from turn to turn. So in the discard phase, any cards that are still in your hand that you haven't somehow played, you can discard down to 1 or all of them if you want. And then you're only going to be carrying 1 card over. So you can be drawing a lot of cards
That gives you
back.
some rough choices sometimes.
It does, but it also gives you, it means you go through your deck a lot.
Yeah.
Your deck doesn't get particularly big in this game. You usually see most of your cards. Then after the discard phase, it's the end phase. And 2 big things happen in the end phase. First, that little round marker over there in those sector cards we talked about moves forward 1. And second, the destiny marker, which is the first player token, moves to the left. So player 1 changes, and we're getting deeper into the territory. So, and the way those little territories, as the sectors are set up, you've got 2 turns per sector. So you get 2 turns at the sector 1 cards, and then you're going to be in sector 2. And the difference there is when you get to the next galactic phase, you're going to be pulling from that new deck above the current sector you're in. So the other thing that happens, too, you got to watch out for is on the sector cards, it'll tell you the number of actions each player get. And as you get deeper into the galaxy, players get more actions. So it's kind of like Lords of Waterdeep, where halfway through the game, you pick up that extra meeple. In this game, you get 4 actions in the beginning, but then I think in the 3rd sector, you get 5 actions, and it goes up from there. So you'll eventually get to 6 actions. So as you progress, you get more things you can do.
And is it in the end phase where you put 1 energy on each surviving?
Oh no, that's a good point, Craig. That's actually in the galactic phase. So in the subsequent turn, we come back to the galactic phase, and we're going to draw new cards.
Okay.
Any cards, what you do is before you draw new cards for the galactic market there, any cards that were not taken get an energy token placed on them. Okay? Any cards that already had an energy token on them are removed from the game and put back on their deck.
Right.
So basically, cards can only be around for 2 turns. And this is an interesting mechanic because it basically means they'll phase out and eventually be gone. So you only really have 2 turns to get access to any card you see, and then it's just gone forever. If you do manage to acquire a card that has an energy token on it, you get a free point of energy when you grab it. So it's kind of like a little bonus because no one took it last time it was out.
It's another interesting little twist where it just forces you as a player, you know that the card's there, but you know it's not going to be there forever. So, how long do I leave it there? Do I need to grab it now before someone else does? Do I need to grab it before it's gone for good?
Right.
Especially if you think it might be critical to what you're trying to build in your deck. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's neat.
Exactly right. It's good, and it's a good observation. It's a really cool. I think it's a cool mechanic. Now, so let's get to the action phase. So, in the action phase, the meat of the game. We've drawn our cards. We've done our energy phase. Our energy's all counted up. We've done the galactic phase. There's a set of worlds and cards. We're all excited to start buying those things.
Yeah.
What do we do? Well, here's what happens. You can choose from any one of these following actions, and then the next player goes, and you keep going around and around. First choice is to draft. Now, to draft the card, it costs you 1 action and the energy cost of the card. Now, you got to be careful here because there's 2 energy numbers on the card. There's the number in the upper left-hand corner. That's the amount of energy that the card costs to play out of your hand, or if it's a world, it's the amount of energy it generates. There's also, though, on non-world cards, there's a small energy number sort of in the middle row of the card. Right. Takes a while to get the hang of this. That number is the number it costs to draft the card from the galactic center. Yeah. So, and by the way, you cannot draft worlds. The only way you can get a world, you got to conquer a world. You got to invade it. So really, when you're going to do a draft, you're really going to be grabbing things that aren't worlds. So, like a new unit type, like a laser tank, or a star cruiser, or a fighter, or a new infantry guy, or a new hero. Those are things you're going to draft.
Tactic cards that allow you to do different kinds of strategies as well, right?
And all those, tactics are another great example. So all those cards have a little energy cost in the middle. So you're going to move your action token down 1. You're going to move your energy token down the cost of the card, and you're going to take that card and put it in your discard pile. Okay, and that's your action. As soon as you do that, you are done. Now it's Craig's turn. Craig might draft also. Rodney might do something else, right? And then it comes back to me. I can draft again, or I can do something else. Instead of draft it, when it's my turn again, I could choose to draft, or I could choose, instead of drafting, I could choose to deploy, what it says in your card is deploy X units. The reason it says X is I can now deploy things from my hand directly into my war zone. What's your war zone? Your war zone is your area below. It's basically your tableau in other card games, right? It's the area in front of you where you've got face-up cards that are ready to do stuff, okay? Yeah. So, and you've got to get stuff in your war zone to be able to invade a planet. So basically, a big part of the game is getting things out of your hand, on the table, get your forces ready before you go invade. And this is part that's fun, too, because you get to see, like, here's my little array of fighters and my little squad of infantry and all that stuff going in. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to look at cards in your hand. If you want to put them on your table, these would be units like infantry or spaceships or whatever. There's a cost in the upper left-hand corner now of energy to put that card down on the table. So it's going to cost you 1 action to put the card down, and it's going to cost you whatever the energy cost in the upper left-hand corner of the card is to put down as well. So if I put down, like, let's say, an advanced infantry unit, it might cost me 2 energy and 1 action to get that on the table, right? Now, this is an interesting action because I can put more than 1 card down. It's the only action that lets me do more than 1 card at a time. So I can put cards out of my hand and into my war zone as much as I want in 1 action, but it costs me 1, I shouldn't say 1, as much as I want for my 1 phase here, but it costs me 1 action point per card I deploy, and the energy cost per card also.
Yeah.
So I put 3 cards down, it's going to be 3 actions, and it could be 10 energy depending on what they cost. Okay? So that's important to know. You can do as many as you want. And that's huge because if I want to get them all out there before Craig, and I know Craig's still got to build his stuff up, that means it'll come back to my turn again, and I can invade the world if I get all the guys down there before he gets his guys ready to go. So that's part of the thing. Did that all make sense to Rodney?
Yeah, that's another interesting part of the game too. Just because because it is separate deploying and invading, they're 2 separate actions. Mm-hmm. You can't go, I'm going to drop all my forces and now I'm going to invade. You got to get your guys out there and sort of have them preparing to invade. For the next turn potentially.
And I think everybody can see you building up your forces and what you're building up, so they can kind of make a shrewd guess at least what type of planet you're going for.
Exactly. Right. Yes, that's neat.
And I think that adds interactivity to the game because you're really playing. You're still playing like other deck building games. You're sort of playing a solitaire game in a way because I can't directly attack Rodney, and Rodney can't directly attack Craig, but we're all vying for the same cards in the galactic center, and so. Different worlds have different requirements to invade, and I can see that Rodney, he's building up a lot of fleet power. He must be going for that world there, and I want that one too. I got to figure out a set of actions I can do to get there before he does.
It can force your hand, right? You might have a little strategy in your mind. I'm going to do this, but then it's like, I can't let Russ take this planet, so I got to invade it now.
Yeah, you might be a more cost-effective thing you can do, but it'll be longer term until you burn a key card or something to get it done. And so that brings us to invading a world. So how does that happen? So on the bottom of world cards and on the bottom of all your combat cards, there are 2 symbols in the lower left. There's a symbol in the lower left and a symbol in the lower right. The symbol in the lower left looks like a little spaceship, and it has a number in it. And that's the fleet power of that card. And the symbol in the lower right is a little infantry guy, and that's the ground power of that card. So worlds you want to invade will have a number for air power, let's say it's 3, and a number for ground power, let's say it's 5. And for me to take over that world, I have to look at all the forces I've got face up in my war zone and add up and commit cards to that invasion. And the total of their fleet value and the total of their ground value must equal or exceed the total of both those values on the planet. Right? It can't be one or the other. It can't be. Yeah. I can't beat the ground and lose to the fleet. I got to beat both. I have to have enough air power and ground power to take out that world. Yeah. Now, what's interesting is some worlds require very little air power and a lot of ground power. Others are vice versa. Some are both. And as you add cards to your deck, most cards are either one or the other. They're either air or ground. So you have to decide: am I going to make a balanced nation, barbaric force, or am I going to kind of lean towards
nations,
one way or the other?
They're barbaric nations, but they're nations.
So Craig and I, it was interesting because Craig and I played. Craig went much more ground-oriented. I went much more fleet-oriented.
Right, and that's not something you go in doing. That's something that kind of is your reaction to the card pulls in the galactic center of the table as you go forward. And you're like, oh, there's a really cool spaceship and a really cool tank, and then Russ takes the spaceship.
Right.
You're like, okay, so tank it is.
Tanks it is. Well, I also found my leader for the faction I happened to play was a very strong air support guy. He had a special rule where any planes involved in combat with him were worth +1 or something.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So your leader, your faction will give you a slight tilt in a certain direction. And it's only one card, but it may, in the early game, you see your cards a lot. It may tip you in a certain direction.
You were able to use it at least twice to good effect.
Yeah, I got kind of lucky there. So that's that. What did you think of the way the combat works there, Rodney?
Yeah, I thought it was neat. I mean, it's cool that you have to invade the world. You have to plan your forces and go in to capture the card. Now, maybe you were going to mention this as well, but you can also colonize a world once you conquer it.
Yep.
Right, which is kind of neat. It allows you to, what is it? You can take one of your common fighters. I think it's the Galactic Grunts or Snub Fighter. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yep.
And then you can choose to get rid of it, take it out of your deck, and put it underneath.
It goes under the world card, right?
Yeah. And again, thinning your deck out as you want to do, get rid of. Right. It has to be it has to have been involved in the invasion, and then it can just come out of your deck and it stays there, and that way it's no longer in your deck. It thins it out a little bit, so when you get those better cards in, of course, you have a better chance of drawing them, right? So
right. Exactly. And we should say, when you invade a planet, so a couple things happen. When you invade, you move all your little war zone guys and say, here, I'm going to use these 2 snub fighters and these 3 infantry guys and this special vehicle, and that adds up to whatever, and that's going to be enough to take over this world. Everything you used in the combat now is removed from your war zone and goes to the discard pile. Unless you decide, as Rodney pointed out, to colonize with one of the basic units, and as you said, that just culls your deck, gets them out of your deck. But they still go under the world, and they're part of your empire, which can be handy for some victory conditions, which give you bonuses for a certain number of things in your empire. So that's what's interesting about that is it's tough to commit some of these cards. Some of these cards will say things like there's some really powerful starships later in the game that are like, as long as this starship is up during the draw phase, you can discard 2 cards you don't like and draw 2 new cards.
But if you just draw 2 more cards.
Right. But the ship might be worth like 8 fleet value. So it's like, oh, do I use it now in this combat and win this world? But now it goes back into the discard pile, and I got to wait till I get it back in my hand, and then I got to pay the deployment energy to get it back on the table again, and the deployment energy is like 7. Or do I suck it up and miss that chance to invade the world, but keep that bonus of being able to manage my hand better on the table? So there's some really interesting, tough decisions you have to make when you invade worlds.
Right.
And there's one other little surprise you can do to people, which is if you're looking at all the cards I have down. And so you can see that because I can't deploy units and invade in the same action as Rodney pointed out earlier. So if it's coming back to my turn and Rodney's thinking, I really want to get that planet before Russ does, and I can see that Russ doesn't have enough stuff in his war zone yet to take over that planet, I can wait one more round before Russ is able to take it over. What Rodney may not know is in my hand I may also have what's called a tactics card. And tactics cards are usually played during an invasion after you've committed your forces, and they usually cost some amount of energy in the upper left-hand corner to play them out of your hand, and they'll do things like, coordinated airstrike. All air units in this invasion are worth +1, or something like that, or +2 total as long as there's 2 air units in the invasion, and that might throw you over the top and surprise your opponents. Oh, he got a turn early because he had a tactics card I didn't see. So the tactics cards are that little wild card that you can't really be totally sure your opponent doesn't have, right?
Yeah.
So those are pretty nice, but they do. They usually don't add enough. You have to be kind of close to pull a tactics card off. They're not usually so much that you can totally shock your opponents, right?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't find when I was playing there was too many that were, what you might call overpowered. But they just give you that little nudge that sometimes you need, right, to get in there and swipe something when the other players aren't expecting it.
Right. And that's pretty much the whole game. The only other actions you can choose from are as an action ability. So some cards will actually say on them, like tactics cards will say, as an action, play this card to, get 2 energy or something. Or not, they don't see that, but, play this card to get another card from your deck or something. You can do that. And last thing you can do for an action is you can pass. And if you pass, you lose all your remaining energy and actions. So you'd only do that if basically you run out of energy or you run out of actions. So because if you have no energy, there's not really much you can do with your actions and vice versa. So
I didn't find with the passing that there was many rounds where if I passed first, that I was sitting there for very long before everyone else had passed, which I kind of liked. Did you guys find that too? Like everyone wraps up at pretty much the same time.
I found that to be the case.
Felt that way.
Yeah.
One or two turns, maybe if your opponent bought something really big, that might not be the case. But for the most part, I found that to be the case.
Yeah, I think there was a time where I deployed a bunch of stuff, that just dropped my whole hand and then I invaded and I was done. Like
that can chew up your action.
Because if you do like one deploy action and do a lot of your actions and energy in one big deployment, you could end your whole turn to one action, basically, one round. Right. But typically it happens. And there's also we should mention there's some really cool fluff cards in here. Like one of the Star Cruisers is like, you deploy the Star Cruiser and then it says in the card, when this is deployed, you can immediately deploy any snub fighters you have for free. It's like an aircraft carrier, it just launches all the fighters out. So there's like cool little fluffy things there that really bring, again, the theme back into the game, I think Craig had a Starbase that made deploying.
Right. But again, you needed those fighters in your hand, too.
Right. So you have to kind of, and again, that's the deck building element of it. You have to kind of see the synergies and build together to get it,
Yeah.
But they make a lot of sense. Like, I've got a lot of fighters, I better get the carrier, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just didn't want everybody thinking like, oh, you got that card out, and all of a sudden every one of your fighters was, it was daunting to see those extra cards pop out, but at no cost. But it was only 2 cards.
Yeah, I think I got that with 2 or 3, but it still felt cool to launch them out. And that's the whole game. So what happens is you play that, you keep going around, and that little token keeps moving, indicating you're getting deeper into the sector. And as you're going, your deck's getting a little bigger, and you're building your worlds up, and now you're getting more energy because you've conquered some worlds that are now generating 3 energy, a couple 2 energies, maybe you're getting a 10 energy around, maybe you're getting a 12 energy around. You get near the end game now, and when you get to the 5th sector, a couple special things happen, and there's some nice graphic design here. There's some nice icons on the 5th sector to kind of remind you, hey, the rules change here a little bit. So in addition, the other sectors move your actions up to 6 per round, but in the 5th sector, it actually says 7 card hand. So in the last 2 turns of the game, in the 9th and 10th round, which is the 5th sector, the core world sector, you will get 7 cards in your hand instead of 6. Also, there's a little shuffling icon on that card, and that's to remind you that going into the 9th round of the game, you have the option to take your discard deck up and shuffle it back into your main deck. That's handy because there's only 2 turns left in the game, and this gives you a chance to get any new card you just acquired in the 8th round into your deck and have a chance of being used before you run out of time, right? It's kind of a nice feature. Because in the core world, this is an interesting part of the game. In the core world sector, Sector 5, there are no more non-world cards. The only thing there is to be done is conquer. So you've got to have your armies done by then. There's nothing else. There's not any tactics cards there. There's not any unit cards there. All that's there is core worlds and what they call prestige cards, which are just cards you can basically acquire to give you more bonus victory points. There's nothing else that's going to affect your combat ability. So that's why you're going to shuffle. You probably want to shuffle your cards back in there, unless the only thing you've discarded is cards you don't care about. So I like those icons. Watch those icons and remember those little special rules because it's easy to forget those rules. The other rule about the core world sector is that in the 10th turn of the game, all the core worlds must be put face up in the galactic market. Okay, so the entire core world, the entire galactic deck in the 5th sector will eventually all be face up before the last buying round. Now, the reason that's important is that along the top of your player mat, it describes all the core worlds, and each core world is basically a certain number of victory points plus a bonus victory point depending on the decks you build. And this part kind of reminds me of Race for the Galaxy. There's different cards in Race for the Galaxy that, depending on the deck build you have, you get bonuses. Like the Senate gives you bonus for more political cards, that kind of thing. So in this game, like there's one core world card that says it starts at 2 points plus 1 point for every fighter in your deck, starfighter. And you start with some starfighters, but you can acquire a lot more along the way. So if you've been building a very heavy starfighter deck, you probably want that core world. There's other ones that give you bonuses for having lots of ground forces in there. There's other ones that give you bonuses for cruisers. And those are all listed along the top of your reference card, as I mentioned, along with the point values. So you can be planning as you're going along through the game and anticipating that's the core world you want. So the reason they have that rule to make sure they all come out is you don't want to be kind of shot down by luck to not see your core world come out on the game. So that makes sure they're out there. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So did you like how the end game works, Rodney? Did it sort of the way it wrapped up make some sense?
Yeah, it was neat. I mean, the first time we played through, we kind of ignored what the core worlds were just to understand the mechanics. Then when we got to it, we realized, okay, this is a big part of the strategy. Early on, you've got to have an idea what core worlds might I want to go for because there's so many points tied up there.
Yeah.
And so our subsequent playthroughs, that becomes another aspect that you're thinking about when you're deck building is
right.
I want to grab maybe this core world or that core world. I got to have the troops out and ready to conquer them by the time that comes around, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah, and they're tough to take out. And then there's also these prestige cards, which are basically also tough to take out, which just give you straight up victory points. So there's kind of some last minute point grabs going on in the final round, really. And these worlds, typically, like for example, the one that gives you bonuses for starfighters requires a lot of fleet. So basically, the guy with a lot of troops and no fleet can't really go steal that from you. But if there's two players both having strong fleets, now you're both going to be vying for that really valuable core world. And it may be the difference in the game. Right? So that's pretty much and now the final scoring real quick to go through this is all you're going to do is you're going to go through, look at your war zone first. Because there's some cards that say in their text, if this card is present at the end of the game, get X number of extra empire points. Yeah. So take your energy token and score those on your mat. Then score any core world bonuses. So, for example, if you got that core world that's +1 for every fighter, go through your deck, count all your fighters, add that bonus. Then, and Craig and I did this wrong, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yes. Then you take all the cards that belong to you, as they say, in your empire. So this is all your worlds, all your cards that were colonized on the worlds, your entire discard deck, your entire regular deck, everything that was in your war zone, and go through that entire pile and look in the upper right-hand corner of each card with a little red circle with a white number in it, and add them all up in your head because that is your final total you're going to add to your total you've accumulated, and that is your final empire point score. And the person with the most points is the winner. If there's a tie, person with the most worlds is the winner of those two players. If that's still a tie, then shake hands is a tie. That's the rules of the game. So that is it. And before we get into final thoughts, we should probably think of any strategy things we learned. We already talked about the core worlds. They complement play styles, right? So as Rodney mentioned, you really want to think that through and time it so you can get the core world you want. You know, if you're going vehicle heavy, to watch your opponents. If someone else is going vehicle heavy too, maybe change up your strategy and go for one of them. Raw is just worth 8 victory points straight up with no special conditions. That's a lot of victory points.
It is good to focus early on. I found I haven't won a game yet of this, despite efforts. But one thing I noticed that helped was my early games. I was probably trying to do too much. I wanted to have good ground fleets. I wanted to have the air attack as well. And sometimes it does help to focus on one of those things and become really good at it. So that when those big point cards come up that require a big ground troop or whatever, you can nab those up. Right. I had to play more really to develop my strategy, but I found that was one thing that was helpful.
Nice. Craig, any strategic thoughts from you, sir?
Well, it's what you've been saying, basically, and that whole really a need to either decide if you're going to diversify and kind of take your chances or really weigh yourself in one direction or the other for your final push into the core worlds. And what can be frustrating is that because it's the deck building game, if you don't get that card that you need, it doesn't matter. Like, for instance, I was, as you said, heavily into land power last night, but most of that was wrapped up in one or two really powerful cards, and I didn't get them. So in the last turn of the game, I was really in a position where I had done as well as I could in my first game and figuring out everything as going along. I had sort of specialized in one area that I thought would be beneficial, but when it came right down to it, there was really not much I could do. So what I would say is what I saw is those core worlds are worth a lot, but there are planets as you go towards the core worlds that are worth quite a bit also.
Yeah, there are. Yep.
If you can pick up 2 or 3 of those 4 or 5 or 6 victory point worlds before you get into the core, then that really gives you a nice cushion in case, that's something that you could, and that was a hard something you can do to mitigate that luck at the end, because I was in a position where I could do that. I could have taken a planet that was worth 6 victory points, but I decided to hold my stuff and hope for that one last good card so I could take on that one really good planet in the end, and I didn't get the card. So one strategy would definitely be to pick up those early game victory points as you go, to give you that buffer against the bad luck in the last draw.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead, Rodney.
I was going to say to build on that too. You just reminded me that you can't ignore the worlds along the way, right?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many awesome ships and ground troops and tactic cards might be out there. I think you got to be grabbing invading at least one world or two,
right,
per round, because you need that buildup of energy and action points. Did you guys find that to be true too?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with both of you completely, and I think also the thing to remember is the core worlds are so expensive to take out. They require so much of your force. It would be very hard to get 2 of them.
Yeah.
So I echo Craig's sentiments. If you can there's a couple regular worlds that are worth like 6 and 5, and that's almost core world value. So if you can score those along the way, and maybe just deny an opponent or steal an easy to get core world just so your opponent can't have it, you can lock the game up. That's a viable strategy. So definitely keep an eye on that, and as you go, and definitely get those other worlds. Definitely get the energy generating worlds, and try to grab a victory point from those anytime you can, because there are other ways than core worlds to win the game. I think, or just getting a minor core world and some prestige cards, you can definitely pull it off. I think.
Right.
All right. So before we get to final thoughts, we should probably describe the patent pending D6G rating system.
Yeah.
So Craig, in the style of a troop commander, about to brief his drop troops before invading a planet. Please describe the patent-pending D6G rating system.
All right, you grunts, listen up. When we hit the ground, we're going to have to face it. We're going to have to... and I eat 2. If I don't. Because some are more important than us. If we do. One more. Make sure your equipment is working and your audio. Because if you don't get, you're not going to 2+. And if you 6+ and you're done, so let's go get them.
All right. Excellent, Craig. Thanks. Those following along at home, basically this is the chance on a D6 that the average gamer will like the game. So if we say it's a 3+.
Ever like me just leave stuff fluffy.
On a 3+,
the higher the number, the worse the game.
Right. So basically, the lower the number, the better the probability you will enjoy the game. Yep. And if we add in a reroll there, that's just like a half. That's how that works.
You've got a degree in math. Shut your mouth.
Right. All right. So Rodney, you want to go first with your thoughts on the game?
Sure. All right, my first review. Here it comes.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Here we go. Well, the world is waiting for you to compromise.
They are.
Well, listen, I would say the components, no problem there. Components are good. Box insert, got to toss that. But otherwise, happy with the components. The rule set, 16 pages, I think. It was clear. It left me with no questions. I found a great one-page game summary on Board Game Geek. All right? You go check that out. It's really great for teaching because it really is literally everything you need to know on one page. So it's great as a reference.
Nice.
That was helpful. It's called the Core Worlds Basic Rules Summary. So if you check that out.
Oh, great. I got to grab that and print it up in a box. Yeah.
Really great when you're teaching people or when you're learning yourself for the first time. The theme, like I mentioned before, I like the way that the game seemed to marry the mechanics of advancing the cards that you could draft with the thematic idea of traveling through space towards these core worlds. I thought that was great. And the scale, like how the game scales, two-player game felt like the right amount of time for the game. I played a 5-player game as well with all new people. What really impressed me about that is everyone caught on quickly, and most of these guys had not played a deck building game before.
Oh, cool.
So that was neat. So it was easy to teach, but it did get a bit long. So I don't know. I'll have to play it a few more times. Maybe as you get to know the cards better, speed things up a bit. But yeah, I thought that was great. I like that you're collecting these, you're invading these planets, and you're collecting them. They're going in front of you, and then you also have these cards that are coming and going. Your troops. So yeah, overall, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to playing it more. Is this where I give my
yes.
D6G?
This is it.
Pending? Okay,
indeed, this is it.
I would have to say I would give this one a 3 plus.
Nice.
I think it's a solid game, and I think if you really enjoy the space theme, you got to go do a reroll on that for sure.
Okay, great.
Cool. You're definitely. I think this is definitely right up someone's alley. If they like the deck building thing, even if they don't really love the deck building thing, because there's other aspects to it besides that. But if they love the space theme, yeah, definitely got to check this out for sure.
Great.
Cool.
That's a good, solid rating.
Okay,
Craig,
Russ, you go next.
Okay. So I'm with Rodney. I like the feel of the game. I like that it feels there's just enough components to make it feel a little bit like a board game. I'm on record as saying that I like a little bit of board game in my card games. Like I like Dominion Prosperity more than Dominion because it's got little bits to play with. So this has definitely got enough of that. I like the little mat with tracking my energy. It gives me that feeling of like maybe it's a little bit like Eclipse. It's not at all like Eclipse, but it gives me that feeling like it is. Love the artwork. I'm a bling junkie, and the artwork on these cards is fantastic. I'm also a huge sci-fi nerd, so having those cool, sleek-looking spaceships on there, and I'm with Craig. The infantry, there's a CG, something's going on with CGI in the way they did this. So the artist here was really more of a ship vehicle guy than he was the infantry guy. But the ships look fantastic. The tanks look awesome. It's a really great-looking set of cards, and I like the theme. It feels right. Like I feel like I'm playing a game that's doing what the theme is saying I'm doing. Like I feel like I'm invading planets and I'm working at my force, and I get all excited and giggly when I look down and see 13 aircraft and my 16 guys, and there's a missile tank, and I'm sending them in. I better spend some energy to fire more missiles. That feels cool to me. I like that whole element of it. And the game's got, as Rodney said, it's not hard to teach, but it's got more meat on it than a game like Eminent Domain, which I find Eminent Domain to be way too straightforward. But this is closer to like a Race for the Galaxy style game, but it's not as hard to teach as Race for the Galaxy. It's not the icons you got to worry about. So I really like this. I think it's a good compromise between that. And I think the action phase, that phase you get to rotate around and do a bunch of stuff, removes the sort of standard deck building feel of grab card, shuffle, draw, grab card, shuffle, draw. There's more stuff going on in the middle that breaks that element up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think deck building players will still love this, but I think it's a deck building game for non-deck building players. It's got enough of that going on there. I think you might be able to sell this to a non-deck building guy. Craig doesn't like deck builders at all. He begrudgingly sat down and actually saw him smile at least twice. So just saying. And I like the graphic design. I think there's some places where they can make it better, but basically you know what's going on, and I like the little reminders in the sector cards. So I'm with Rodney on this. I'm going to say this is I'm going to put my modifiers on this. It's a 3+ base.
Yeah.
If you are a deck building fan, I'm going to add a 1+ to that and make it a 2+, because I think it's if you're a deck builder and you like sci-fi, you got to get this game. If you're not a deck building fan at all, I'm going to put a -1 on this and make it a 4+. I think probably half the non-deck builder fans will still like this game because of its uniqueness and its flavor.
Yeah,
that's my rating.
All right. Okay. Well, I will follow along and say that I really liked the graphic design. There are elements of it that I thought were awesome. And I love when a card game kind of uses cards to build a game board in front of you. And this game does that really well with the turn tracker and the galaxy in the middle there with all the different cards that you're working on. One thing that really bothered me with the graphic design is that with the exact same icon, color, placement, and font, the cards have either an energy cost in the upper left-hand corner or the energy they generate in the upper left-hand corner, and that confused me as I was laying out my cards and trying to count my I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's not like it's going to cause you any serious brain burn, but when you're trying to figure out your energy at the beginning, there is kind of a stutter step as you go like, okay, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2. Oh crap, that's actually a tank. Okay, so that doesn't count. So it was odd to me that it was the exact same color icon and everything.
I'm with you there, Craig. I felt the same way.
Yeah, it just seemed like that was a dropped ball somewhere along the line, and somebody sent an email and said, "Hey, could you back this in orange instead of yellow, or something?" And it didn't. It fell through the cracks, but It's not a huge deal. Theme-wise, I loved it. I really like it. I'm a big sci-fi guy. I like the whole concept of you're taking these planets and you've got these forces and the ground forces and the air forces and all that stuff. Totally nitpicky point. But it's the exact same issue that I had with Summoner Wars, which was an issue of scale. I would love if instead of heavy missile tank, it said heavy missile tanks.
Right.
That would be awesome to me, because now my scale is like I'm taking planets, whereas I'm thinking I have one heavy missile tank.
Right, because you got one heavy missile tank, but then you got a Star Cruiser. That's one card also.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
so that was.
I'm with you.
So I totally get like Dreadnought. That's awesome. I finally built a Dreadnought, but Snub Fighter.
Yeah, it should be Fighter Wing or
exactly.
or Grub Squad.
I mean, and again, that's totally nitpicky.
Right.
It will not affect your enjoyment of the game in any way, but it's just something that these are the kind of things that my brain fixates on. There's not a lot of player interaction like most of these kinds of games. There's more than there is usual for the genre, but it's still that kind of, you can mess with the other guy's intentions more than anything else. And I found that was a frustration for me, especially as I watched Russ take more and more planets as I was trying to figure out the best balance for my side. Every time he went and pushed all of his cards forward, I just felt myself yearning for either some kind of a random element that he would have to pass in order to do it, or some way that I could interfere with him so that I could like stop his march to victory. And so the fact that there wasn't that interaction and there wasn't that, and that luck is pure personal choice. I mean, I don't think that's going to be like, this game is weak because it doesn't have that. I'm just saying that there was those frustrating moments where I wish there was something I could have done to stop Russ's march to victory there, which is, again, an issue that I have with this genre in general.
Maybe be able to invade one of his worlds that he's already conquered.
There you go. That would be that would be intriguing, but very, very messy.
Yeah,
there is an expansion coming out, so who knows? I'll check that out.
That's true.
They very well could. I would really be surprised if there wasn't more player interaction in the expansion, because that seems to be how this kind of game develops.
Yeah, Race for
out of the
Galaxy
box,
the
there's not a lot,
yeah.
and then the next expansion kind of adds more and things like that. So is it a deck building game? Because it's marketed as a deck building game. It says it's a deck building game on the box. But Steven, you keep telling me it's not a deck building game. That's not true, and I'm just joking, Steven. He says it's not your father's deck building game, and I get it. And, it's got more of the board game bling and stuff on it. When you look at people who are complaining about board deck building games in general, and I think of a deck building game as more of a Euro-ish game, because of those three things: the weak theme, lack of bling, and lack of interaction on a player level. I think this has much better theme than any deck building game I've seen, especially if you enjoy sci-fi. I think it's got some nice bling. I think it could be a little cooler looking, but I don't think it has to be. I think it looks really cool out of the box. And again, the interaction, I do think it kind of falls down a bit from where I would like to be. I think it does feel very much like a two games of solitaire that do kind of sort of overlap in the middle where you're trying to get those same cards and stuff. But so all that being said, I think I will sadly have to mirror Russ's review exactly. And I would say that it's a 3+. In general, kind of guys who like some card games but don't like other card games, they're going to sit down. This is probably going to be a 3+ for you. +1 if you enjoy deck building games and you're a sci-fi guy, and -1 if you're like me and you don't really like deck building games. I found myself enjoying myself immensely. I found there were times when I looked at my hand of cards and I was giggling, as Russ indicated. Never really worked out the way it did in my head when I was giggling, but I enjoyed it. In the end, it does have those same weaknesses that for me, I would prefer to play another game where there's more character interaction and more luck, and or an ability to stymie the other guy. But I enjoyed it. I had fun, and I think you will too on a D6 roll of 3 or better. Or 4 or better, or 2 or better, depending on who you are.
So there you have it. That's Core Worlds. So, Rodney, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the D6 Generation. It's been great having you on. Really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us, Rodney. If folks are trying to find out more about you and watch it played, where should they go?
Well, you can go right to our channel. It's at youtube.com/watchitplayed, all one word. And we have a bunch of playlists set up there. So if you're looking for a particular game, that's probably the easiest way. Just go through the playlists, find the game you're looking for. And as I say, we like to interact with the people who come and visit our site. So if there's a game you'd like to see us do, let me know. Post in the channel comments there, and I'll definitely respond to you, or try to respond to everyone who takes the time to post a comment to us. So yeah, happy to have people come check things out, and maybe join us for a game even.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
sounds great. I'm going to head over there. I'm going to check it out now.
There you go.
All right, Rodney, take care. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Rodney. It's been great spending some time with you.
Awesome. It was a true pleasure. Thanks, guys.
You in the market for deeper D6G intel? There's only one place to go for your contact in the off weeks. What you seek is located somewhere in the lost chapters. Go to the D6generation.com for further instructions.
Hey guys, I don't know about you, but I am ready for a vacation. It's the end of the school year, and seriously, these kids are getting on my nerves. So what I need to do is I need to go out there and find something cool to do to blow off some steam and get away from the real world. And you know where I can do that the easiest?
Where's that, Craig? Where is it?
I can go to geeknationtours.com.
Preach it.
I can go all over the place. I can go all over the world with gamers that like the same things I like, that have the same interests and the same personality types, you'd hope. Although every now and then, there's going to be a hammerhead, but still. and see the things that gamers want to see. We can go to Las Vegas and check out the Star Trek stuff. We can go to Gen Con. We can go to England, all over England.
Hey, do you know their Star Trek tour was just featured in the New York Times?
Seriously?
Geek Nation Tours in the New York Times. Indeed. True fact.
Wow, that is awesome.
Isn't that cool? So you could have been, if you'd gone on that tour, you could have been in the New York Times. That's how it works.
There you go.
They can't. The Geek Nation Tours does not guarantee you'll be in the New York Times.
Exactly. But seriously, every one of their tours has these dinners where everybody gets together, and you have sort of an orientation dinner. Yeah. You're going to be all together. You're going to be playing games in your free time. You're going to be talking games when you can't play games. You're going to be seeing historical sites that gave rise to different games, and it's just really all about your inner geek just exploding out like a super geek, really.
So what you want to do is go to geeknationtours.com and click on upcoming tours to see all the hotness.
That's absolutely true.
Indeed. geeknationtours.com.
This edition of Jever Notice is brought to you by the Cranky Lawyer, with thanks to the state of Maine for taking advantage of lawyers for poor people by not paying them. Way to undermine the Constitution. Sounds serious. Did you ever notice how mean, stupid people can be on forums? Just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding. They can be mean, and they're still annoying me. But seriously, how many of these editorials can I do that focus on forum etiquette? I think the takeaway there for me is going to be that I'm spending too much time on forums, and I'm just going to have to go from there. So today, I was at a total loss as to what I was going to say. I've got a bunch of thoughts running through my head as usual, but none of them seemed particularly funny or profound in any way, and that sort of left me in the lurch. But then this past weekend was graduation, and I listened to some really nice speeches that struck a chord, and then yesterday I took Reese to his first train show, sort of, but that's towards the end of the story. And I saw some things that further caused my gray matter to churn a bit, and what resulted is, what you're about to hear. Did you ever notice how insular our minds can get sometimes? How much we can focus on our own stuff to the exclusion of whatever else is going on around us, and we tend to start seeing the world in all ways as it relates to us, rather than how we relate to it. Recently, I've been thinking of age a bit. I am not super old, but I am, let's just say the actuarial tables say I'm a bit over halfway to my expiration date. What an unpleasant way to put it. Well, anyway, so yeah, I am right about in the middle of what I can expect, and whenever I see stuff, whether it's gaming stuff or boating stuff or hiking stuff or writing stuff or any of the stuff that I enjoy doing, I tend to look at it from the point of view of its relation to me. Is someone doing something that I like? Oh, they're doing something that I like. Is someone doing something that I don't like? Oh, they're doing something that I don't like. Anyway, rather than Maybe, oh, wow, I wonder why they're doing that. Or I wonder if I'd like to do that, or what it would be like to do that. My friend, the principal of the high school where I teach, gives great speeches every year at graduation. You would expect it from a former theater teacher. I don't normally benefit greatly from my friendship to him outside of the normal bounds, but every now and then I get a little perk. So imagine my pleasant surprise when I showed up a little late to graduation, only to be escorted to a reserved seat right in the middle of the front row. I was a little sheepish, actually, seeing all the older faculty sitting behind me, but hey, when life hands you something like that, you take it, right? So I sat and I enjoyed, and only later found out that I was in the front row not through favoritism, and I honestly should have known better, but through, wait for it, seniority. See, although I'm by far not among the oldest teachers, I have been teaching at this one school for a very long time now. So even though a great many of the teachers are older than I am, many of them came to the school after I did for a variety of reasons, and so there I was in the front row, 'cause I'm old. And then the speech started, and it was about age and getting things done and focusing. And my friend was talking about his recently purchased Fiat 500 Abarth. That's how you say it. And can you say midlife crisis? Of course, a standard transmission. And his 8-year-old daughter was asking him, "Daddy, if you're still alive when it's time for me to start driving, will you teach me how to drive a standard?" And that's mostly her being a bit of a ham. It runs in the family. But it did give my friend a slight pause. And his story, which I had already known, now transformed into a graduation speech, hit me a little bit as well. Where was I going to be in the years to come? How much time did I have left? And so that's where my brain was when I was planning yesterday's boys' day out with my son Reese. There was a model train show about a half hour south of here and a small comic convention, Granite State Comic-Con, which doesn't seem right, about 10 minutes north. So I plan to take Reese with me to the train show to see the layouts and look for some cool terrain. O-scale terrain, by the way, is pretty darn near perfect for 28mm gaming terrain, just saying. Then we'd head back north and meet up with my friends at what I thought would be a fun little local convention where Reese could walk around and look at all the cosplay folks and stuff like that. Well, we showed up at the train show only an hour or so after it was supposed to open and 2 hours before it was supposed to close. And I was informed by the nice old lady at the front desk that all the layouts had already been put away and that the vendors were closing up shop, so they weren't going to charge me. Is that normal? I gather now that it is, actually, and that a lot of these guys at these train shows show up for the sole purpose of selling each other their stuff for an hour or so, and then they pack it all up, sort of like a top-secret, in-crowd-only flea market. Well, I was able to take advantage of that end-of-the-flea-market mentality and snagged a couple really nice O-scale buildings, big ones, by the way, for my latest terrain project before we had to leave and think about heading north, hoping for a better, more interesting experience for Reese. But the part I really wanted to talk to you about today was what I saw as I was pulling out of the parking lot. It's a very nice hotel, by the way, the Radisson in Nashua, New Hampshire, if you want to check it out on your computer and sort of visualize where it all took place. The parking lots are sort of terraced down this hill towards a really lovely little pond, and I saw two very old gentlemen slowly making their way down the center road in front of me to their car. Now, I was in a bit of a quandary because normally I would help older guys carrying heavy loads, and believe me, they were both carrying very heavy loads, but I was already driving the car, and I had the baby all set in the back seat, and I froze. I didn't know what to do, so I just sat there. And so I waited patiently, watching them make their very slow way past with each of them with a stack of battered cardboard box full of train stuff. And I had a rather amusing and uncomfortable aha moment. In about 30 years or so, that could very well be me and my friend Joe. Or my friend Joe and I. That's exactly what we would look like, leaving a convention with our arms loaded down with armies and terrain, except much older, obviously. And then I started to think, all of us in my gaming group, most of us, there's some young guys, but we are the older gamers. I mean, wargaming as a very popular hobby hasn't been around for that long. And we were in college, most of us, when it started to get going with the boom of GW and all that. And although there are outliers, folks who are much older than we are and still play, those are rare. In most gaming circles, we're the older guys. And then it warmed my heart to think if those two guys are still doing their trains at their age, spending the day, or at least an hour of it, I guess, sorry, still a little bitter, together with their hobby, maybe as we get older, that kind of sight won't be uncommon at conventions either. I know it's not cool to think about getting old as a gamer, especially for the bad boys of gaming who are always talking about drinking and swearing and smoking and look how cool I am despite what those jerks in high school said. But seriously, we're all getting older, and we're all going to probably keep gaming. How weird is that? I mean, that is really weird, but cool too, because wargaming is totally something you could do as you get older. In fact, many times, people in my group, when we're sitting around, we start talking sort of jokingly about maybe when we get older setting up a retirement community that revolved not around golfing, but around board, card, and war games. You know what? I bet before long somebody is going to do just that. And you know what? I think it's going to be really cool. Oh, and as for the Comic-Con, I got a bunch of texts telling me not to go there while I was en route and that I wouldn't enjoy it. So that went out the window too. But Reese and I had a very pleasant lunch anyway, thank you very much. And then we both went home to take a nice long nap. Because I'm not getting any younger, you know. That's about all I've got to say about aging at this time. Thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA Discussions Forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
Videographer is a videographer, but not all videographers are wedding videographers.
Is that the same as like a birthday clown? Some clowns are birthday clowns, but not all clowns are birthday clowns?
Maybe.
I don't know.
All birthday clowns are clowns, but not all clowns are birthday clowns.
Right.
It's in the rectangle.
Right. And who's higher on the ladder? Do the Ringling Brothers clowns look down at the birthday clowns as some kind of...
for sure. Yeah.
You know, or are they like
any play at the club?
Are they like out of work waitresses? They're all clowning around at birthday parties, waiting for that big break at Ringling Brothers.
When all the clowns are cramming into that phone booth or into that car, those guys aren't getting in the car.
Right?
No.
They're not getting in.
Yeah.